The top magic family in Korea today is the Shin family. Although the family has countless geniuses, our protagonist Shinwoo, the third young master of the family, was still known as an outstanding talent. The head of the Shin family had extremely high expectations for this son. The pressure he placed on him was to graduate at the top of his class at Obelic Academy, become the greatest mage, and lead the family. Because from a young age, Shinwoo's talent had far surpassed that of his siblings, and even everyone else. Therefore, it was no surprise that the head of the Shin family hoped his son would reach the pinnacle of magic. Time flew by, and now Shinwoo was a second-year student at the prestigious Obelic Magic Academy. Unlike everyone else, his spellcasting process was incredibly long-winded. First, he had to gather mana, then go through 8 steps to form the magic formula. But before he could even finish casting, Shinwoo was pounced on by 2 AI wolves, and just like every other time, he once again became the laughingstock of the other students, led by that obnoxious guy, Sahu. Haha, you call that magic? Shinwoo, a washed-up mage who can't even use modern AI, should just know his place. Magic isn't for someone like you. His voice was full of scorn. Shinwoo still tried his hardest, refusing to give up even when covered in wounds. However, because he exceeded the time limit for this monster suppression test, he failed. Shinwoo's feelings were incredibly complicated. It would be a lie to say he wasn't sad or angry, but at least his casting speed was much faster this time. When he was deemed incompatible with AI, the head of the Shin family quickly gave up his expectations for this son. He even gave Shinwoo a potion to destroy the mana circle in his heart. However, he had absolutely no intention of giving up on his dream, even though the path he chose was traditional magic, something that was long obsolete. The drawback was that Shinwoo could only learn that ancient magic through books. While others studied from digital grimoires, the pile of ancient magic documents had nearly filled Shinwoo's room and almost buried him alive. So, on one beautiful day, Shinwoo decided to clean up the pile of books a bit and suddenly saw a very strange book he didn't even remember buying. The book looked quite old, yet it had an unusual and expensive appearance. Curious, Shinwoo opened it. Inside, it was filled with indecipherable text. He only recognized a few words. Jervel-Batanos. That was the name of humanity's first archmage, the first emperor of the Magus Empire of Batanos, and the founder of magic itself. Ever since he was a child, Shinwoo had read many biographies about this legendary figure, and it had been a long time since he'd come across that name. Shinwoo casually flipped through a few more pages, but then something strange happened. The book suddenly emitted a blinding golden light, so bright that Shinwoo couldn't even hold on to it. What was even more terrifying was that afterward, Shinwoo heard a mystical voice coming from the book. "O descendant, who shares my constitution and can hear my voice, I, Jervel-Batanos, leave this book to you." Shinwoo's eyes widened in astonishment. Before, he never knew that being incompatible with the modern era, unable to adapt to AI-era magic, was actually a blessing in disguise for him. Shinwoo had endured so much humiliation. For example, he was the only one in his class to fail the practical exam and had to take remedial classes amidst the laughter of his peers. For 2 years at the Magic Academy, Shinwoo had become someone who could only endure helplessly, and he never thought he would have such a fateful encounter. A day after discovering the book left by Jervel-Batanos, Shinwoo went to class as if nothing had happened. During lunch in the cafeteria, just as he found a corner to sit down, he heard a familiar voice from above. "Eating alone again today?" Shinwoo looked up, not seeming very surprised by the person who had just appeared. "Yeah, you're here?" he replied. The newcomer sat down across from Shinwoo enthusiastically. "Oh, what's in your bowl looks pretty good too." His name is Jun-chan. He might look a bit goofy, but he's actually in the top 10 of the academy and reached the milestone of a 3-circle mage at the age of 18. You could say Jun-chan is a rather talented young mage, and he's also the only person Shinwoo can call a friend in this prison-like school. Jun-chan is the only one who genuinely treats him well. His catchphrase is always, "If anyone bullies you, just let me know, and I'll." After Jun finished wolfing down the piece of meat in his mouth, Shinhao started telling him about a strange book he'd found yesterday. It seemed to be about Jebel Bineo, but from the 3rd page on, everything was blank, and it even emitted light and a voice, which made him suspect someone had messed with the book. "Oh, they used magic on it? They really went all out." "So what did the voice say?" Jun-chan seemed excited, but he didn't stop chewing. "Something about leaving magic to his descendants. But you can't open the book unless you have the same constitution." Shinhao replied with a self-mocking tone. "Oh, that's fascinating. Can I try it?" Jun-chan's voice went up an octave, showing how interested he was in the book. However, Shinhao's expression was terrible, because from the 3rd page on, the book really was just blank paper. But the last page said that to inherit the magic, one must first face death, specifically by creating a magic circle in the brain instead of the heart. Hearing this, Jun-chan finally stopped chewing. His expression turned serious. "That's no joke? Creating a magic circle in your brain? That's basically a death sentence. Hey, let me see that book. That evening, the two returned to their dorm at the Obelic Magic Academy, and Shinhao showed the strange book to Jun. The voice said only someone with the same constitution as Jibal Baineo could open the book, but Shinhao felt it was just some cruel prank, so he had Jun Chan give it a try. And as it turned out, even he, a guy built like a tank, couldn't open the book. It wouldn't budge an inch, as if it was magically sealed shut. I don't know, whatever, just toss it, Jun Chan said impatiently. I'm sleepy, so I'm heading out. Good night. After he left, Shinhao opened the book once more, and strangely, it opened effortlessly for him. However, this time, something even weirder happened. A page that had been blank before was now filled with ancient writing. At the same time, he heard yesterday's voice emerge from the book once more. Descendant, if my assumption is correct, you're currently using magic by forming a magic circle in your heart, right? For a normal person, that's not unusual at all, but for people like you and I, it's not the right method. Shin Hao was a little panicked, as the book had hit the nail right on the head. Just then, it flew up from his hands. There was no wind in the room, yet the pages began to flip on their own, and the voice continued to drone on. If you accept my will and are ready to become my disciple, then destroy the magic circle in your heart and forge a new one in your brain. Afterward, open this book again. Shin Hao was so tense that cold sweat beaded on his forehead. He still felt this had to be some kind of cruel joke. The voice kept goading him into creating a magic circle in his brain. Mana, the very source of magic, was known to be a powerful toxin to the brain. If it penetrated the brain, the mind would collapse, and in the worst case, it would result in brain death. This was something every mage learned from a very early age. That was why, earlier that day, Shin Hao had told Jun Chan that the last page of the book contained lines goading him into killing himself. But Shin Hao couldn't figure out who could be behind this book. While plenty of people at the academy hated him, they would probably just stick to mocking him and wouldn't take it this far, right? Shin Hao tossed the book aside and went to sleep, but he tossed and turned all night, unable to get any rest. Early the next morning, Shin Hao took the strange book to an instructor and asked for his help in examining it. The instructor picked up the book, gave it a once-over, and noted that it seemed quite ancient. So how would you like me to examine this book? If you could just try to open it for me, and also check if it's been magically sealed. Sealed? A look of confusion crossed the instructor's face. Shin Hao didn't want to go into detail about his experience with the book, so he made up a story about a strange rumor circulating the academy about this book. Worrying about rumors isn't going to help your studies. I'll check it for you, but you need to focus more on your schoolwork, the instructor said, frowning, before concentrating on examining the book. But after studying it for a moment, he couldn't find a single trace of magic on the book. The instructor handed it back to Shin Hao, and didn't forget to remind him to ignore the rumors and focus on his studies. Shin Ha-do returned with the book, his mind a complicated mess. He had hoped there was even a slight chance that this was all just a joke, but even Jun Chan, the student with the highest mana levels, and the instructor couldn't open it. If that's the case, this book was very likely the real deal. That night, Shin Hao sat before the book, deep in thought for a long time. Destroying the magic circle in his heart meant starting over from scratch, and creating one in his brain was far too dangerous. But because there was a chance the book was real, after much deliberation, he decided to take the gamble. Shin Hao still had the potion his father had sent him before. Just by taking it, the magic circle in his heart would be destroyed. He still vividly remembered the words of the head of the Shin family, "Set magic aside and focus on your magical studies." His tone was cold, brimming with disappointment, a stark contrast to the proud tone and high expectations from before Shin Ha-do entered the academy. But he had no intention of giving up on magic. Even at this moment, holding the potion in his hand, Shin Hao had no such intention. He only wanted to bet on the words of that book. Shin Hao's hand trembled uncontrollably. He reassured himself that his life was already at rock bottom, and if he didn't take a risk, he would be stuck forever. Then, he decisively tossed the potion into his mouth. He was even prepared to die today. The potion took effect almost instantly. Shin Ha-do felt an agonizing pain spreading from his chest. The magic circle connected to his heart was shattering. The pain was akin to the death of a mage. And immediately after, Shin Hao proceeded to undertake a forbidden challenge, which was to circulate mana through his brain. The moment he channeled mana into his brain, the pain in his heart vanished, replaced by a splitting headache, as if he'd been struck by lightning. The pain was so intense, he just wanted to die and be reincarnated. Yet, at the very moment Shin Ha-do thought he was about to give up, someone whispered into his ear, "Can you hear me, my successor?" The voice was formed from mana, and Shin Hao heard it with perfect clarity. He could also sense light and darkness, heaven and earth. The spirits of mana were dancing and whispering, coexisting with the mana in his own body. The pain gradually subsided. He heard a voice laughing and singing, as if bestowing a blessing upon him. After an unknown amount of time, Shin Ha-do woke up to find himself collapsed on the floor. The strange book was resting on his head. It was morning, and he was still alive. He immediately opened the book. Another blank page had been filled with ancient script. When he saw these words, that voice echoed in his head again, much clearer this time. Congratulations on completing the first step. That was the name of this book. From now on, your legendary story will begin through this book. I pass down all of my magic to you, my successor. No, I should say I am passing down all of my magic to my disciple. In that moment, Shinhao began to cry. It seemed his miserable life was over, and a new, brighter chapter was about to begin. Several days later, Shinhao continued to diligently attend class, but instead of listening to the lecture, his eyes were glued to Ildris. New information was gradually appearing on the book's blank pages. It was all magic passed down to him by that mysterious master. Ildris held knowledge that was completely different from the current mage training curriculum. For starters, mana has a will of its own. This is why, for most people, when mana enters the brain, a massive conflict occurs that results in the destruction of this vital organ. Therefore, to the brains of most people, mana is a potent poison. But for Shinhazu, it was different. The powerful will of his brain suppressed the will of mana. In other words, his brain wasn't destroyed, but instead, it gained control over the mana. Perhaps this was also why he had a natural resistance to AI chips that interfere with brain functions. The instructor noticed that Shinhadu was constantly glued to that book in class. Although it was an eyesore, he didn't criticize him directly. Instead, he chose to throw a sarcastic jab. You all know there's a midterm evaluation for second-year students, right? This year's exam will have a new rule. From now on, any student who fails to meet the standard will be forced to drop out. As he uttered the words drop out, his eyes were clearly fixed on Shinhadu, and his smile was utterly malicious. He then added that this rule had been personally proposed by the head of the Shin family. After hearing this, the students in the class started buzzing with chatter. A few troublemakers like Bitch Sahyu were quite pleased. It's about time we got rid of the defective products. It seems we have an at-risk student in our class, don't we? Shinhadu knew full well they were talking about him, but he didn't care. His mind was currently split in two. One half wondering why his father had made that proposal, and the other half preoccupied with thoughts of that book. After class ended, he went out and looked for a virtual reality training center. Shinhadu wanted to practice his new magic on his own. It's just that the rental simulation training centers in the city were incredibly expensive. For example, this place was the cheapest, and it still cost 200,000 won per hour. But even so, Shinhadu had to bite the bullet and pay, renting a training room for 1 hour. After the employee handed him the room card, he gave him a scrutinizing look and thought to himself, isn't that Shinhadu, the third young master of the Shin family, the son of a noble family being deemed incompatible? How unlucky. Shinhadu had now changed into his training gear and began the simulation training. The first mission was to subdue wolves. Compared to the 2 wolves in the previous test, Shinhadu's opponents this time were a whole pack. Although they were just virtual reality technology, their ferocity and attack power were real. Although wolves are low-level monsters, fighting 10 of them at once was no easy feat. The average time to complete the wolf training at the academy was 12 minutes and 33 seconds. Now, Shinhadu would put the knowledge written in the iDress book into practice. Every day. That was the only way for him to improve. This was the first time he had tapped into the power from the new magic circle that had appeared in his brain, and it was much stronger than Shinhadu had imagined. Watching the water-based magic endlessly pouring out, he was so moved that his hands trembled uncontrollably. This is amazing, isn't it? Is this my real power? Unbelievable, Shinhadu mumbled. While other mages only circulated the magic circle through their hearts, to use AI magic, he could circulate the magic circle throughout his entire body by using his brain as the core. Thanks to the infinite circle, Shinhadu's magical power, which had been suppressed for so long, was finally unleashed. He unleashed his power indiscriminately, as if to make up for the past 2 frustrating years. My disciple, don't be surprised by things at this level. You still have a long way to go. The infinite circle is merely the foundation of Baineo-style magic, which is controlling magic through mental imagery. This is the first book of Baineo-style magic. Now, Shinhadu had grown accustomed to the mystical voice emanating from that book and wholeheartedly followed the instructions of its owner. But that person had said that intent was the first step of Baineo-style magic, and he had used his mind to masterfully circulate mana throughout his body and release it as magic. 1 hour passed by quickly, and Shinhadu left the training center. An employee entered the training room he had just left to clean it, and also wanted to see for himself how the fallen genius Shinhadu had trained. The statistical results that appeared before him left him speechless. Because Shinhadu had only taken 6 minutes and 37 seconds to complete the wolf-subduing exercise. This was clearly on an international competitive level. How could someone incompatible with AI possibly set this kind of record? Is this piece of junk machine broken again? The employee frustratedly kicked the machine hard. Meanwhile, Shin Ha-do was on his way back to the academy, whistling happily as he walked, because he knew that today's result of 6 minutes and 37 seconds was the beginning of a new era's legend, and that legend was none other than him, Shin Ha-do. However, the process of learning magic from Idris wasn't entirely smooth from start to finish, because the writings within it were completely different from the magic he had been taught since he was a child. For example, mana is the hands and feet. The heart and mind move as they will. Shin Ha-do had to find enlightenment on his own through such vague words. It was like an idea hidden behind a transparent veil, as if he could almost touch it but couldn't quite grasp it. In the study of magic, this feeling is called the wall of enlightenment. When a mage reaches the limit of their magic, it means they have hit the wall of enlightenment, a truth that holds true in any era. Therefore, Shin Ha-do decided that from now on, he would focus on circulating mana through his entire body, just as it was written in the iDress book. By the time he regained his focus, he had already been circulating mana for 10 hours. Normally, for an ordinary person, doing so would surely lead to exhaustion, or even worse, passing out. But strangely, Shin Ha-woo didn't feel tired at all. He started circulating his mana at dusk, and when he opened his eyes, it was already morning. Shin Ha-woo wearily headed to class, just like any other day. As soon as he left the dorm, he saw a cheerful Jun-chan rushing towards him. "Good morning, Ha-woo. Why do you look so drained? Are you okay?" Although Shin Ha-woo was fundamentally fine, constantly being aware of his mana circulation was no easy task. He wanted to quickly get used to this magic circle in his brain to master it as fast as possible. It's just that this was incredibly draining. The age of 12 marked the milestone when Shin Ha-woo opened his second magic circle. People started calling him a prodigy, and because of that, the head of the Shin family placed immense expectations on him. However, he was now back at square one with only the first magic circle in his brain, completely uncertain about the best path forward. Shin Ha-woo knew that breaking through the wall of enlightenment was necessary to advance in magic. His father had told him this many times when he still had expectations for him as a child. And then, Shin Ha-woo suddenly remembered a saying. Perfection is just a chain. Perfection is a lie born from human arrogance. It was as if hundreds of light bulbs lit up in his head at once. Perfection? Shin Ha-woo felt like he had finally found the key. So, right after class that day, he returned to his dorm and began circulating his mana. This time, Shin Ha-woo no longer did it aimlessly, but started to feel the mana as if it were his own arms and legs, his heart and mind moving at will. Finally, his mind was liberated, and he successfully activated instantaneous, chantless magic. AI magic uses short incantations to form spells. The casting method is consistent, but the recorded approach is to free one's thoughts. However, the magic Shin Ha-woo had now mastered was different. It was a type of magic that could freely change its form and shape. Formless magic. After awakening this ability, Shin Ha-woo felt exhausted but also incredibly exhilarated. He couldn't believe that despite having only opened his first magic circle, he could use this kind of impossible magic. He was gradually breaking through the wall of enlightenment to reach a higher level. Another night passed, and the next morning, while Shin Ha-woo was sitting in the lecture hall, an instructor came to inform him that he had a visitor. If Shin Ha-woo wasn't mistaken, his father had arrived, and indeed, he wasn't wrong. "It's been a while, father." He spoke first, only to be met with an ice-cold and incredibly distant gaze. The father and son sat opposite each other on the sofa, the atmosphere so tense it could freeze. After a long while, the head of the Shin family finally spoke. "You're still attending school. It seems you haven't taken the medicine I sent, have you?" "Yes, that's right," Shin Ha-woo replied. He didn't want to reveal his connection with Eider, so he spoke carefully. "But my magic has been improving recently." Shin Ha-woo's tone was incredibly serious, but his words fell on deaf ears. Ever since his son failed to synchronize with the AI chip, he had felt that his dream of becoming a talented mage was just a fantasy. And this time was no exception. "Shin Ha-woo, you've wasted a whole year, and it's time to face reality. No matter how hard you work now or what you achieve in the future, as long as you refuse AI magic, you will never become a true mage," Shin Ha-woo's father stated bluntly. However, he still had to acknowledge his son's unique talent. That's why he went to the trouble of coming here this time to once again advise him to give up on becoming a mage and return to properly studying magical theory. That way, even as an outcast, he could still make use of his talent. "I've said it before, many times, that I will not give up on magic. I don't want to live a normal life depending on our family's name, father. What I want is to become the next head of the Mousin family." Shin Ha-woo's voice was filled with determination. If it were the old him saying these words, his father would surely have supported him. But now, the head of the Shin family just furrowed his brows, looking sternly at his son. "It takes more than just ambition to become an archmage or the head of the Mousin family. Don't worry, father, I will prove it." Those two words, prove it, almost made the head of the Shin family laugh. Prove it? Are you talking about how you're just barely passing the tests of the academy and not get expelled? No, in this upcoming standardized test, I will place in the top 10, and if I fail, I'll leave the academy and dedicate myself to studying magical theory as you wish. But if I succeed, I want you to recognize me as a talented mage and promise to support me completely. Shin Hyul's father had no idea where this confidence came from, but he didn't want to argue further, simply putting on his cloak and standing up, which was a silent acceptance of the deal with his son. A few days later, the instructor announced the format for the upcoming exam. It would be one-on-one, single-elimination duels. This format was quite novel, as the students were used to fighting monsters. The exam would begin in a few days, and starting from the round of 16, outside corporations and members of the Magic Tower would be attending as spectators. Shin Hyul didn't even have to look to know that Baek Sayuk and his cronies were mocking him. They probably thought that in a one-on-one duel, he would be eliminated in the very first round. However, this change in the rules perfectly suited Shin Hyul's plans. It was time to show everyone his true abilities. During a break that day, the entire student body was buzzing about the midterm exam. And for good reason. Besides the novel exam format, the fact that people from the Magic Tower were coming was enough to get them excited. This meant that any student who performed exceptionally would get noticed by major players. Because the Magic Tower is an organization composed of the 12 strongest mages in the world, wielding power equivalent to an entire nation. Joining the Magic Tower was every student's dream, and Shin Hyul was no exception. "Hey, you defective product!" A voice just begging to be punched rang out, pulling him from his thoughts about the upcoming exam. Shin Hyul didn't even need to look to know the voice belonged to Baek Sayuk, who had come with a few other annoying students to mess with him. This guy was a classic example of a spoiled brat with too much time on his hands. He came from a high-class family, but had an unbearable personality, his favorite hobby being bullying other students, especially Shin Hyul. "Defective product, how's it going? I hear I'm your opponent for the first match of the midterms. You must know you're screwed, right?" Shin Hyul didn't want to make enemies, but this guy's attitude was just too obnoxious. He kept going on about getting revenge for what happened 5 years ago, making Shin Hyul sigh in exasperation. That was when the final match of the Junior Magic Tournament took place. Back then, Shin Hyul had beaten Baek Sayuk so badly that he burst into tears on the stage, and the guy had held a grudge ever since. After Baek Sayuk found out that Shin Hyul was incompatible with the AI, he harassed him relentlessly to vent his long-held grudge. But not only was Shin Hyul not angry, he actually found his opponent so childish it was pathetic. Despite his silence, the bully kept running his mouth. "Didn't the instructor say that anyone who fails to meet the standard on the midterms gets expelled? Maybe I should just beat you to a pulp so you get kicked out? What will you do then, huh? Go crying home to mommy?" Baek Sayuk burst out laughing, gloating. But Shin Hyul remained silent. If this guy was going to be his first opponent, then he couldn't possibly miss this golden opportunity. This was the perfect chance to show everyone what he could do. "Humph, isn't that what's going to happen to you?" Shin Hyul finally let his sharp tongue loose, flashing a sarcastic smile. His words immediately reminded Baek Sayuk of that humiliating defeat from 5 years ago, and his expression darkened. It seemed Baek Sayuk couldn't believe that someone who couldn't even get an AI chip implant like Shin Hyul would dare to talk back. After a few seconds of stunned silence, he began to laugh maniacally. "Is this moron insane? Have you lost your mind? Do you not understand your situation? You stupid defective product, what are you even hoping for?" Baek Sayuk had no problem humiliating Shin Hyul in front of everyone, but he had no idea that the boy in front of him had changed. His confidence was well-founded, and Shin Hyul had no problem firing back a devastating comeback. "Oh, you were just as loud 5 years ago, right before you lost to me so pathetically. It seems you haven't improved at all in 5 years, have you?" This remark struck a nerve, making Baek Sayuk tremble with rage. Meanwhile, Shin Hyul maintained his taunting expression, even calling him the weak mage Baek Sayuk, which made him fly into a rage and lunge forward, grabbing his collar. Shin Hyul remained perfectly calm as he brushed. Pushing the opponent's hand away and adjusting his collar, he continued, "Someone like you who lives in the mud probably wouldn't understand this, but only those who stand at the top can afford to fall temporarily. And once a genius, always a genius. I hope you can remember that." After saying that, Shin Hao casually turned and left, leaving Bitch Sahyuk grinding his teeth in fury. He swore that in the exam 3 days from now, he would absolutely crush Shin Hao and burn him to ashes. The very next day, Shin Hao saw the first article about himself, heralding the grand return of a genius, the fallen genius of the Shin family. Can Shin Hao rise again against all odds? Shin Hao immediately guessed that Bish Sahyuk had paid someone to write this, all to draw as much attention to him as possible, so he could then defeat him amidst all that anticipation for a comeback. It's just that this time, Bish Sahyuk was bound to be disappointed. On the contrary, he was actually helping Shin Hao attract media attention. For this midterm evaluation, the more people anticipated the genius's return, the more it would benefit him. Just then, a call came from Shin Hao's father. He immediately guessed his father wanted to talk about the article. Yes, father, I've already read today's article. You don't have to worry, Shin Hao said first. The person on the other end was silent for a few seconds. Did you arrange this? Yes. I provoked Bish Sahyuk to attract public attention. The head of the Shin family was at a loss for words. He truly couldn't imagine where his son got so much confidence from. Regarding the deal from the other day, Shin Hao's father had agreed not because he trusted his son, but because the Shin family had nothing to lose. In fact, he had never expected Shin Hao to win. And because that article could bring disgrace upon the Shin family, that's why he was calling today. The public already thinks I've been expelled from the Shin family, so even if I bring shame, the impact on the family will be minimal. Shin Hao cut his father off. But considering the potential gains, I believe this is worth it. The person on the other end scoffed. Gains? If you win, what does the Shin family stand to gain? Me, Shin Hao replied confidently. The greatest mage to ever come from the Shin family, and who will be the strongest family head in its history. You will have the greatest leader the Shin family has ever known. Shin Hao made no effort to hide his ambition from his own father. Seeing that his ambition surpassed even that of the master of the magic tower, his father was speechless, only offering a warning before hanging up. If you're going to talk so big and still end up bringing only disgrace to the family, then be prepared to face the consequences. The cold dial tone echoed, but Shin Hao felt neither sad nor hurt. The stage was now set. He believed that in just a few more days, his father's attitude toward him would have to change completely. Another day passed, and the day of the midterm evaluation finally arrived. Just as Bish Sahyuk had said, he was Shin Hao's first opponent in this one-on-one duel. The moment they faced each other, Bish Sahyuk sneered. What's up, you defective product? Did you like the article I wrote? They called you a prodigy, right? You've been famous since you were a little kid, huh? I can't stop laughing just thinking about how pathetic you'll look when you lose, unable to cast a single spell. Despite his opponent's verbal attacks, Shin Hao remained completely calm. Is that so? Because I was thinking you'd be the one losing. As for the article, thanks. Thanks for always putting on a show for me. But to be honest, I couldn't care less about a nobody like you. So I'm going to end this quickly, and you better not hold back on me. Bish Sahyuk was left speechless, then his face twisted in disbelief. He thought Shin Hao had really lost his mind. As for Shin Hao, standing in front of all the spectators, he boldly declared that he would defeat his opponent using only the first magic circle. The arena at Obelic Academy was massive. On the dueling stage, Bish Sahyuk faced Shin Hao with a bloodthirsty look in his eyes. After Shin Hao's bold declaration, he seemed to have lost all his reason. So, right after the referee blew the whistle to start the match, Bish Sahyuk immediately launched a preemptive strike. As he swung his arm, a magic AI window appeared, and 2 attacks were launched simultaneously. This was Bish Sahyuk's signature magic, Bombardment, and there was no denying its immense destructive power. Shin Hao simply tilted his head to the side, easily dodging it. Seeing this, Shin Hao He had even activated his third magic circle. It was the same blast magic, but the cumulative effect of the attack was powerful enough to blow away half the stands. A thick cloud of dust rose up, and everyone present fell silent, with only Baek Sahyuk's laughter echoing throughout the entire arena. Haha, this is what you get for being so arrogant, you stupid piece of trash. However, the scene that unfolded next left him gaping in astonishment. Shin Hao was completely unharmed, without even a single small scratch on him. His opponent's anger flared up once more. With 3 magic circles, Baek Sahyuk unleashed 3 attacks at once. This time, they were easily neutralized by Shin Hao's water-type magic. Baek Sahyuk's eyes widened in shock. His special blast magic was blocked so easily? How strange. At that moment, inside the observation deck, a young mage, after seeing how Shin Hao fought, couldn't help but mutter. Even though it's only first circle magic, he can cast it that quickly. Why did you change your schedule at the Blue Tower just to watch this academy's match? Do you know something about Shin Hao's magic? The girl beside him asked. No, I just read an article about the return of the prodigy, so I came here out of curiosity. The other person let out an "oh," realizing he was also just a spectator here for the drama. But even so, if the rumor that the master of the Blue Tower, an 8th circle mage, came here to watch a second-year student's match got out, it would surely cause an uproar. That's right, this youthful-looking man was none other than Kim Kang-in, the master of the Blue Magic Tower and an 8th circle mage. He naturally knew he shouldn't make a conspicuous appearance, which is why he was using the VIP room to observe in secret. As the two were speaking, the door to the VIP room opened. Kim Kang-in turned his head, an excited smile appearing on his face. Oh, you're here too? Meanwhile, down in the arena, Baek Sa-hook's will was starting to waver. He had been very confident at first, but after his blast magic was neutralized, he began to get anxious. Not only had Shin Ha-yu successfully defended with just first circle magic, but his casting speed was also abnormally fast. So how could Baek Sa-hook not be worried? What's wrong? Curious about my casting speed, are you? Shin Ha-yu asked gloatingly. Taunted by him, Baek Sa-hook lost his composure even more. Just like before, he attacked with all three magic circles at once. The power was even greater than before, but it was still ineffective. Shin Ha-yu remained unharmed. That's enough dodging. Shin Ha-yu then launched a wind-type attack. Although Baek Sa-hook managed to dodge it this time, the fact that his opponent could skillfully use two types of magic at once made him even more flustered. You really think you can beat me with just first circle magic? Despite this, Baek Sa-hook was still talking tough. Yeah, of course. And naturally, Shin Ha-yu wasn't about to back down. His nonchalant reply almost made Baek Sa-hook cough up blood from anger. This time, Shin Ha-yu summoned a wind spear again. Baek Sa-hook successfully created a shield to block it. But Shin Ha-yu's casting speed was so fast that as the first spear was neutralized, he quickly created a second wind spear for a sneak attack from behind. This spear tore through Baek Sa-hook's sleeve. He was now panicking pathetically, while the crowd held its breath in dead silence watching their confrontation. You bastard, what did you just do? Baek Sa-hook screamed. Still don't get it? Want me to show you again? A provocative smile appeared on Shin Ha-yu's face, and at his fingertip, a stream of wind magic was waiting to be unleashed. What is that? Is that really a wind spear? A wind spear shouldn't have a double shot attribute, should it? Watching Shin Ha-yu attack like a storm, Baek Sa-hook was at a loss for what to do. It really shouldn't, but I can do it. Take this. This time it's 4 shots. That was why Shin Ha-yu said from the beginning that he would defeat his opponent with just a single magic circle. After all, when his first circle magic could attack from multiple directions at once like this, who could possibly block it? Baek Sa-hook still tried to struggle by creating a shield, but he only managed to block 3 of the wind spears, while the last one flew towards him in a curved trajectory and stabbed him straight in the back. Seeing his opponent's struggling appearance, Shin Ha-yu was quite pleased. Your calculations are decent, but are you sure you just want to stand there in shock? After all, the match has only just begun, giving his opponent no time to rest. A continuous barrage of wind spears was unleashed, catching Baek Sa-hook completely off guard. He started to back away, aiming to create some distance, because mana and its effective range are limited. Baek Sa-hook believed that if he could just keep enough distance, that troublesome attack wouldn't be able to reach him. But unfortunately for him, he had miscalculated, because immediately after, Shin Ha-du converged his smaller attacks, creating a single, massive, and intense wind spear. Kim Kang, in watching from the VIP room, couldn't help but be impressed. Oh, not only is he casting spells instantly, but their trajectories are also changing and merging in midair. What kind of magic is this? He asked Sir Shin In-hyuk. The person who had just entered the VIP room was the head of the Shin family, Shin Ha-du's father, the mage Shin In-hyuk. As the head of the Madosin clan, he was also an 8-circle mage. His magical power was in no way inferior to that of the Magic Tower Masters. Shin In-hyuk had been silent the whole time, but Kim Chang-in and the girl beside him couldn't stop marveling, because the tricky magic Shin Ha-du was using clearly ignored the rules of open-source magic. Speaking of that so-called open-source magic, for example, with a reverse attack, if the target is beyond 125 feet, the spell cannot reach them. And if the trajectory has been changed once, it cannot be changed again. In other words, open-source magic is only effective based on its predetermined effects. Therefore, in modern one-on-one magic duels, it's like a battle of wits, where each person tries to predict the other's moves using known spells, and flexible reactions are the key to victory. But the kind of overpowered magic Shin Ha-du was using was completely different. It ignored the limits of modern open-source magic, powerfully leaving his opponent with no way to retreat. Baek Sa-hook was now knocked to the ground. He was panting heavily, his expression one of disbelief that he was actually struggling against his opponent's first circle magic. You look down on one circle mages too much. Sa-hook, Shin Ha-du slowly approached, then crouched down to be at eye level with his opponent. Even if you exhaust yourself with third circle magic, a single small spell is enough to take a life. What do you mean by that? Baek Sa-hook felt all the hairs on his body stand on end, but he had absolutely no strength left to run away. At that moment, Shin Ha-du summoned water-based magic, and orbs of water floated in the air, looking harmless. But then they wrapped around Baek Sa-hook's head, making it impossible for him to breathe. Seeing Baek Sa-hook about to drown on dry land like this, the stands grew even quieter, even though he was wearing the Academy's combat uniform, which was protected by a safety barrier spell. It was useless now, because Shin Ha-du's attack, though simple, was aimed directly at his head. The outcome of this battle was already clear. The referee immediately blew the whistle to end the match and declared Shin Ha-do the winner. Only then did he retract his magic, and the unconscious Beek Sa-hai-hook was carried away. Shin Ha-do knew that every eye in the stands was fixed on him, and it had been a long time since he'd enjoyed this feeling. The feeling of being a true mage once again was truly amazing. After this battle, Kim Kang-in and his secretary also left. The match had indeed been worth his anticipation, and Shin Ha-do had successfully piqued the curiosity of this young mage. Shin Ha-do also got a short break. Jun Tran was so excited he looked like he was about to jump on him. Although he was a true friend, he had long grown accustomed to Shin Ha-do's poor performance. He never expected to see the day his friend would make such a powerful comeback. "Your magic just now was insane. How did you practice that?" he said excitedly, gesturing wildly as he described the battle. "Your wind spear flew here, then flew there. The magic merged and then split apart again. It was truly incredible. You want to know? But my magic is a secret," Shin Ha-do replied playfully, because he felt he shouldn't reveal to anyone what he had learned in the past. Then, Shin Ha-do took out his phone and showed his best friend an article on the front page with the headline, "The Return of the Genius." The article also included a video of an interview conducted right after he finished the match. In the video, the reporter was interviewing. "You voiced the curiosity of many people. What exactly was that magic Shin Hao just used in the battle, and why was he able to cast it so instantaneously? You're asking about changing or combining the trajectory of the wind spears, right? I'll answer those questions for you." Before Shin Hao could even speak, another voice cut in. It was Kim Kang-in. He was so excited that he even made a public appearance and showed up at this interview. Then, Kim Kang-in walked over and friendly put his arm around Shin Hao's shoulder. "I watched your recent match and was very excited. I believe you used it, the fourth magic circle imprinting spell, right?" Shin Hao didn't answer, but Kim Kang-in demonstrated that magic right in front of all the reporters. The imprinting spell he mentioned is a technique mages use to prepare a main spell in advance, allowing them to cast it instantly when needed. This means that with imprinting, instant spell casting is possible, so why isn't such a useful spell more widely used? The reporter continued to ask. "Well, that's because imprinting has its drawbacks. It can only be used to activate spells 3 circles lower than the user's level. So, Ha-do? Am I right?" "Yes, that's right," Shin Hao replied. Even though what Kim Kang-in said was completely wrong, it just so happened that he didn't know how to explain his Teneo flight-type magic, and he appeared right when he was needed. He decided to just go with the flow. "So, does that mean your current skill level, Ha-do, is a 4th circle mage?" The reporter asked again. "That's right, I'm sure of it." Kim Kang-in was so excited he answered before the main character himself, and Shin Ha-do didn't even object. And so, this became the biggest scoop of the day, that someone as young as Shin Ha-do had already opened his 4th magic circle. That level could be compared to the records set by the Tower Masters, and since this information was confirmed by the Master of the Blue Tower, the press had no reason to doubt it. So, everyone came to believe that the prodigy Shin Hao had returned with 4 magic circles, when in reality, he only had a single, newly opened circle in his brain. After watching the interview video up to that point, a skeptical Ji-sun Chan asked, "Hey, are you really a 4th circle mage?" Shin Ha-do didn't answer right away, because the interview was still going. The reporters were still curious about how he ignored the rules of open-source magic, being able to attack outside the allowed range and simultaneously change the attack's direction more than twice. This time, even Kim Kang-in was stumped, seeing that he didn't know how to explain it. Shin Ha-do stepped forward himself. "Allow me to explain. Ignoring the rules of open-source magic is actually very simple. I modified the magic formula." Hearing this, Kim Kang-in's eyes widened in shock. Modifying the magic formula? He felt that was impossible. Modifying a magic formula is like adding a flight function to a car. It's not something that can be done easily, especially by a young man like Shin Hao. Therefore, he felt like the kid was lying. But right after that, Shin Hao demonstrated the skill in front of everyone, leaving them all in awe. Kim Kang-in was no exception. As the master of the Blue Magic Tower, he was extremely curious about this young man. He wasn't an AI-compatible person, so no one knew for sure what his future would hold. And if what Shin Hao said about modifying magic was true, then this would undoubtedly be a magical revolution. And from this day forward, the entire mage community would be shaken by this. After hearing this, Ji-sun Chan looked even more skeptical. "Modifying magic? Should I believe this or not?" "Yeah, you should," Shin Ha-do replied. "Well, anyway, congratulations on your win. I'm heading back to the dorm now. I need to get myself in the right mindset because I'm facing a tough opponent tomorrow." The next day, Shin Hao got to see the tough opponent Ji-sun Chan was talking about. He was a talented mage in his own right, but he really struggled against this person and ultimately couldn't escape defeat. Because that person was Adela Star, a genius born from 2 clans, the Starrett family from France and the Korean Mystic clan. Adela's magic was very special, the main reason being the lunar mystic arts, the secret technique of the mystic clan. She fought against Ji-Sun-chan with incredible ease. The match ended without Adela even breaking a sweat. Sitting in the stands, Shinhao also watched her beautiful silhouette and flowing hair intently. That long, yellow-haired girl. Her power is a secret art that combines light and darkness, creating a brilliant moonlight that illuminates the silent night. This secret magic art isn't registered within the scope of open-source magic. Its range, power, and properties are all a big question mark. Therefore, he knew that facing her would be very difficult. Just then, Adela also turned her head to look straight at the stands. Her cold gaze made Shin Ha-do genuinely wonder if she was actually looking at him. Anyway, the match was over. Shin Hao went to give Jun-chan some water and console him a bit for having to face that she-devil so early. As the two were cheerfully teasing each other, she suddenly appeared behind him. Shin Hao, I heard that you've recently returned as a true mage. The reason I enrolled in this academy. I hope you'll help me remember it. Shin Hao was no stranger to this girl. They had known each other long before enrolling in Obelic Academy. The Shin family and the Hyun-soo family had always been on very good terms, and because of that, he and Adela had the chance to meet at many events. But if their relationship had to be described in one word, it would be rivals. Adela even gave up studying in France and enrolled in Obelic Academy just to surpass him. But ever since he was deemed incompatible with AI, she was so disappointed that she stopped talking to him altogether. The fact that Shin Hao was labeled as incompatible with AI, besides being a significant event in his life, was also a huge shock to Adela, as she had lost the rival who motivated her. Now that he had just made his comeback, she was already showing this fiery, competitive spirit. Adela, I'm not worthy of being your target. Shin Hao scratched his head. They hadn't spoken in a long time, so facing Adela felt incredibly awkward. We'll have to wait until we fight to find that out, Adela replied coldly, then turned and walked away. But Jun-chan started to worry. Hey Ha-do, are you sure you're ready? Ready for what? Shin Hao replied vaguely. You're asking like you really don't know? Your next opponent is Adela Star. Shin Hao's face went completely blank for a moment. Obelisk Academy was truly cruel, pitting him against the #1 seed in just his second match. They had one day to rest. The next day, Adela appeared in the arena with an expressionless face, but Shin Hao was nowhere to be seen. In the stands, a few impatient guys started targeting him, maliciously suggesting that Shin Hao was too scared and had bailed, and that his stats from yesterday's match were just a fluke. In his interview yesterday, he was all talk about his transformed magic, but in the end, it was just empty words. He probably realized he couldn't beat Adela, so he withdrew beforehand. They gossiped smugly. In the arena, the referee kept looking at his watch impatiently. Just as he was about to declare the waiting time over and announce Adela as the winner by default, Shin Hao came running in, out of breath. Sorry I'm late, he said, panting heavily, looking as if he had overslept and just sprinted here from the dorms. The referee showed no leniency. He didn't care about Shin Hao's reason for being late and gave him no time to recover, immediately blowing the whistle to start the match as a penalty for his tardiness. As for Shin Hao, he quickly stabilized his breathing and calmly faced Adela, but she was very curious to know why he was late. It was nothing important, just a little preparation, Shin Ha-do replied, then began to unfold his infinite circle. Because you're pretty strong, Adela, so I had to prepare thoroughly to defeat you, right? You prepared it in just one day? Adela asked doubtfully, because she could sense that the Shin Hao in front of her now was completely different from the one yesterday. At the same time, Adela was filled with anticipation. She wondered if she would finally get to witness the true power of the person standing before her. As soon as the signal to start the match sounded, Adela, much like Bisa-hyuk, wanted to gain the upper hand by attacking first, but compared to that amateur, she was far calmer and more composed. Adela's magic created a six-barreled barrage of fire, all of it shooting towards Shin Hao. In response, he used windstorm magic to block them. Adela wasn't phased, and followed up with an earth spike attack. When she cast this spell, the ground cracked open and razor-sharp spikes shot up from below with extraordinary speed. Shin Hao retreated with lightning speed, then executed a spectacular flip in midair, dodging all the earth spikes. Adela immediately launched another attack from above, certain her opponent couldn't block this move. Seeing the aerial attack aimed at his defenseless midair state, Shin Ha-do couldn't help but be impressed. This girl was truly agile and naturally, most people would think he couldn't possibly dodge it, but he was different. To everyone's shock, Shin Ha-do created a defensive magic shield in midair. Adela's jaw dropped when she saw Shin Ha-do turn the shield horizontally and use it as a foothold. His confident, superior demeanor, combined with his unique use of magic, was completely worthy of the title of genius. and his combat attitude forced Adela to consider using the secret moon-type magic of the Black Mage clan. She wanted to win this match at all costs. As for Shin Ha-do, he knew that to face this girl, he had to use everything he had, even if it meant plucking the sun from the sky for this fight. Shin Ha-do stood high up with his back to the sun, but when Adela, who was below, tried to get a clear look at him, she was blinded by the light. She immediately realized that an attack from Shin Ha-do was being initiated, forcing her to put up a strong defense. Instantly, Adela used magic to create a large shield. At that moment, Shin Ha-do leaped down from above, a wind elemental sword in his hand. He slashed powerfully at his opponent's shield, but it didn't even leave a scratch, because his opponent had been cautious enough to use third-tier defensive magic. With the attack failed, Shin Ha-do temporarily retreated to create some distance. Right then, Adela seized the opportunity to counterattack. However, just as she was about to strike, she discovered that Shin Ha-do had bound her legs at some point. The panic on her face was completely unconcealed. She recalled that when Shin Ha-do landed, his left hand had touched the ground. Could he have cast the binding spell at that very moment? Yes. If so, his speed was so fast that Adela's eyes could no longer keep up with his movements. Unable to attack, she had no choice but to create another great shield. But Shin Ha-do had no intention of attacking head-on. He circled to his opponent's side, then used water elemental magic to form an arrow, and fired it at Adela without hesitation. At that moment, she was busy using magic to destroy the binds on her legs, while Shin Ha-do simultaneously created several waves of water arrows to attack. Luckily for Adela, she destroyed the binding spell just in time and created a shield to block the volley of water arrows. Though she was struggling and breaking out in a sweat, Adela still felt Shin Ha-do was easy to deal with. That's because she had seen his interview yesterday and believed he was a fourth-tier mage. If he was using abridged incantations to cast spells continuously, then he could only use first-tier magic to attack, and first-tier magic couldn't possibly defeat her. As Adela was lost in her triumphant thoughts and reinforcing her magic shield, an arrow came hurtling down from above, landing right behind her. Adela's eyes widened in horror. Hadn't Shin Ha-do just created 3 water arrows? So when was this wind spear launched? Feeling the scorching sun above, a theory formed in Adela's mind. Could Shin Ha-do have hidden the wind spear magic within the sunlight? Just like many years ago, Adela collapsed under Shin Ha-do's arrogant downward gaze. You forgot who you were up against, Adela Star. Today, Kim Kang-in and his secretary had once again come to the arena to observe Shin Ha-do's match, and his sharp combat intuition continued to surprise them. It seemed that from the moment he dodged Adela's Earth Spike attack, everything had already been clearly planned out. By flipping into the air to dodge the Earth spikes, Shin Ha-do justified his ability to gain high ground by turning his shield into a platform, then he concealed his silhouette in the sunlight, maximally restricting his opponent's vision. Next, he set up a multi-layered wind spear before landing to draw Adela's attention. Finally, after making Adela believe the real trick was the Earth Bind, he launched the pre-cast wind spear, completely eliminating his enemy. This entire process was executed smoothly and flawlessly, without a single error. And now, Kim Kang-in understood why Shin Ha-do was given the title of a first-tier archmage. He could achieve victory simply by using a single magic circle and first-tier magic, beaten by a stronger opponent. It's just that with this performance, his father, Shin In-hook, still wasn't satisfied, because in the end, it was only first-class magic. Look, no matter how carefully he calculated or used his advantageous position, he still couldn't land a finishing blow. Just as his father said, first-class magic couldn't completely take down Adela, and at this moment, she stood up once again. Shin In-hook's eyes were filled with disappointment. In front of an outsider like Kim Kang-in, he still bluntly criticized his own son. He can't win because Adela hasn't even used that magic yet. Down in the arena, Adela was feeling extremely conflicted. Shinyu's impressive performance just now reminded her of the time before the incident where he became incompatible with the AI, and the two of them had fought an incredibly intense duel. Because of that impressive performance, Adela decided to use her full power. Ha-do didn't seem surprised by the current situation. It's finally here, the ultimate moon attribute magic, the secret art of the Moonlight Serpent Mystic Clan. The ground beneath her feet cracked, as Adela summoned countless magic circles. Ha-do was pushed back by this terrifying power, as those circles emitted a blinding light. At the same time, in the room, Kang, In, and another person were watching the match. He asked In-hook, who had just gotten up from his seat, "Are you leaving?" He calmly replied, "The match is over. There's no need to watch anymore." At that moment, a sudden noise from outside made both of them turn their heads. Shua's eyes widened in disbelief. Impossible. Kang-in looked down below, his face a mask of complete astonishment. Right after that, the door to the room was pushed open by Shu Chan. He rushed in frantically. Adela, standing in the arena, was also stunned. This can't be. Before her eyes was a completely unharmed Ha-Du with a magic circle behind him. He held his hand forward and slowly uttered, "Volcano." Adela's face filled with disbelief as she watched the approaching flames. Second-class magic. Ha-Du's eyes were filled with confidence. "I already told you. I was delayed because I had to prepare to defeat you." Adela replied, "The limit of imprinting only goes up to first-class magic." She frowned and asked, "Have you already surpassed the fifth magic circle?" Hearing this, Ha-Du didn't answer, but simply looked straight at Adela and smiled. The memory rewinds. The night before, at the Obelic Academy dormitory, Ha-Du was sitting on his bed with his arms crossed, staring intently at a book. He frowned, deep in thought. Adela isn't someone I can beat with just first-class magic, and my fighting style isn't compatible with the moon attribute mystic arts. He opened the book with a frustrated look on his face. At first, I thought I would wait until I had completely mastered it before trying to overwhelm her. Ha-Du read the contents inside and then realized, in the newest page of the iDress, if I can truly control Tu-Min. He flipped through the book's pages. It said to channel energy into the magic circle on the next page. Following the instructions, Ha-Du turned to the next page, which showed a diagram of a magic spell along with some text. "This magic circle will take you to a new level." Seeing this, he wondered to himself, is it some kind of mechanism? Ha-Du held out his finger and decided, "I'll try it, there's no reason to hesitate." The moment he touched it, the book emitted a blinding light. Ha-Du looked at the glowing object beneath his hand and exclaimed in surprise. The light grew increasingly intense, forcing him to pull his hand away. "Damn it, it's glowing again." "Ah!" Ha-Du raised his hand to shield his eyes and cried out. A moment later, the light began to fade, but he had vanished without a trace. Ha-Du winced and slowly opened his eyes again. He now found himself in a space that resembled a library. Ha-Du looked up at the golden light above him. "Where am I?" A clear voice suddenly rang out. "Welcome to the first trial page." A girl wearing a black and white dress appeared in midair and introduced herself. "I am Alpha, the guide who manages the first trial page." Ha-Du asked in confusion. "The first trial page?" Alpha replied, "That's right." After saying that, she spread her arms wide. "This is the first trial page inside the book of iDress." Ha-Du was flabbergasted when he heard this. Inside the book? He thought to himself that it wasn't teleportation to some faraway place, but that he was literally inside the book. Ha-Du let out a forced laugh in disbelief. Alpha began to explain. "In this trial, I will test whether your Tu-Min is truly complete." She pointed both her hands toward him. "The trial instructions will be provided at the beginning." Alpha continued. "If you pass, pages 18 to 31 will be updated with information on second-class magic." Ha-Du rubbed his chin in thought. "So, I have to pass this trial to get information about the next magic circle." She then asked, "Now that the explanation is over, shall we begin the trial?" He clenched his fist resolutely. "Of course, let's start right now." Alpha placed a hand on her chest in a salute. "Understood." In a flash, her entire body levitated high into the air. "Then let the first trial begin." Alpha closed her eyes, her whole body radiating a golden light. Down below, Ha-Du bit his lip nervously. He watched as her body slowly dissolved. "I did not think she was human, but I never expected her to be a magical entity." Then a voice spoke up. "I will now explain the trial." Ha-Du's eyes widened in surprise. "That is the professor's voice." A stone of myriad colors flew into his hand. "The name of this crystal is the Mana Kwang He. It is an incomplete crystal with 4 uneven attributes mixed together." Ha-Du looked up in a daze. "Your mission is to completely purify this crystal." He lowered his head, his thoughts hazy. "Completely purify this crystal." Ha-Du observed the crystal in his hand. The Mana Kwang He is an extremely fragile crystal, requiring incredibly careful mana control. He pondered. "Inside this crystal, 4 types of mana exist in a chaotic state, and now I have to purify it." Ha-Du thought to himself, "It is like being asked to separate sand, salt, sugar, and pepper from a fine mixture." Then he analyzed the situation. "This is not simple at all. Usually only those who have mastered the mind's eye can purify it." Ha-Du smirked, his eyes filled with confidence. "But this is going to be fun." Suddenly, his pupils flashed with the blue light of the mind's eye. Ha-Du looked down at the crystal with its jumble of colors. In an instant, the colors separated by type. The crystal emitted a surrounding circle of light. He closed his eyes tightly and told himself, "Focus." The boundaries between the lines of light grew clearer and clearer. Ha-Du gritted his teeth, pouring all his strength into the stone. Immediately, the crystal lit up, unleashing a wave of energy that sent him flying. Ha-Du leaned against a bookshelf, thinking, if the mana fluctuates even a little, it creates a shock wave. It is sending a warning signal. He took a book from overhead to shield himself and analyzed the situation. "Even if I try to separate the mana, they are blended together so thoroughly it is hard to pull them apart." Ha-Du pushed himself up from the floor with a mysterious smile. "But I have got an idea. I will keep trying no matter how long it takes." He recalled the subsequent attempts and did not know how much time had passed. He just kept trying to purify it, time and time again. Even the slightest lapse in concentration forced him to start all over. I repeated this countless times. After a long while, he held the purified crystal in his hand. And then, finally, he succeeded. The Manakwang He, that voice rang out once again. Congratulations on passing the trial, successor. Drenched in sweat, Hadu looked joyfully at his palm. The voice continued. You have mastered the mind's eye. I will now update the Book of Idress with the Level 2 technique to create the resonance circle. A few seconds later, he was lying in his own beloved bed. A look of astonishment was clear on Hadu's face. I am back. The magic circle on the book has also vanished. He picked up the book. All right, I have finally learned how to weave a Level 2 magic circle. Hadu's expression turned serious. Before the next match begins, I absolutely have to master the Level 2 magic circle. With that thought, he glanced at the book. The next day, at the match venue, Adela was waving her hand to unleash her moonlight. Streams of light rained down from it. She swung her arm again, directing the attack. The magic circle immediately shot a powerful beam of light straight at Hadu. Suchan, who was watching the match, was extremely worried. Damn it, Hadu is a goner. Adela closed her eyes and calmly flicked her hair back. The match is over, she thought to herself. I never expected him to get so strong in such a short time. Adela's eyes slowly opened as she was lost in thought. Hadu, just what kind of person are you? But it is over now. The genius I once looked up to is no more. But just then, strange sounds suddenly echoed from behind Adela. She turned around in confusion. What is that sound? Hadu's pupils flashed. Level 2 circle, activate resonance. A blazing red magic circle appeared behind him, along with 2 flames in his hands. With the darkness obscuring his eyes, Hadu raised a purple flame, combining 2 infinity magic circles. He clasped his 2 hands together, and behind him, a pair of hands with sharp claws materialized. Hadu thrust his hands forward, asserting his will. He opened his eyes wide. Become my very limbs. The expressions on Kangen and Inhyuk's faces, who were standing up high, stiffened. Suhan and the announcer's jaws dropped in unison, and Adela was also stunned. What? What in the world is happening? Before her eyes was the sight of Hayu controlling 2 other arms to block the beam of light Adela had created. He pointed toward Hwasan, and seeing this, she took a few steps back. Defensive magic. A giant gun appeared above Hayu's head, the first resonance version. Witnessing this, Adela's eyes widened in disbelief. She watched the fireballs being shot out continuously. No, I can't block it. Adela raised her hands, allowing the beams of light to fly into her body. Then she smiled faintly, her gaze very gentle as she declared, You've returned. Once again, you are the goal I strive for. On Hayu's command, the gun relentlessly fired at where she stood. Dust flew up from the arena floor, making people cover their noses. As the thick dust gradually settled, Adela was still standing there after taking that hit. Inhyuk and Kangen had not taken their eyes off the match for a second. A few seconds passed, and she collapsed powerlessly. Hayu watched her lie unconscious on the ground. He was also too exhausted to resist, and slumped to the ground. The referee's voice boomed. The match is over. The winner is Hayu. In the room, Kangen once again spoke to Inhyuk, who was striding away. Are you leaving, sir? He replied in a low voice. I have another meeting. Kangen glanced over, seeming to understand. Then he casually put his hands in his pockets. You're not very good at lying, are you? As he finished, Kangen's gaze swept over Hayu, who was celebrating happily. A while later, after the match had ended, everyone began to leave one by one. He took off his jacket and sighed, I'm so tired. Then he immediately recalled the second infinite magic circle. He had synchronized it with the mind circle to amplify his magic, and the lunar magic was a type of hybrid magic. Hayu thought about combining the range of light magic with the potential of dark magic. By adjusting the intensity of the dark element, I can narrow the attack's range and counter the moonlight with enhanced dark magic. After all, lunar magic is a unique secret art of the Hyunsu clan. Not just anyone can use it, but by observing and summarizing the magic structure, I successfully achieved pure mana control. The resonance circle allows me to analyze magic with a more unique perspective. The mana purification process also trained my mana control. With that thought, he brought a hand to his face. Without these factors, defeating Adela would have been nearly impossible. Hayu suddenly noticed everyone was buzzing with discussion. Kangen, smiling while pushing up his glasses, approached him step by step. Kangen stopped in front of him and spoke. Hey, Hayu. He looked up at him blankly and let out a sound in response. Hayu shot to his feet in surprise. Master of the Magic Tower. Kangen looked directly at him. I came because I wanted to have a word with you, Hayu. A moment later, Hayu and Kangen were sitting in a private room. His demeanor was pleasant. Sorry to bother you when you need to rest. I watched your match. It was truly magnificent, Hayu replied politely. Thank you. Kangen pushed up his glasses and got straight to the point. I'll ask you directly. Hayu, Have you reached the fifth circle of magic? Hayu was immediately taken aback when he heard Kangen say that, and he pondered it. Come to think of it, I used second circle magic during the match. The master of the Green Tower must have thought I was using imprinting. If I use second circle magic, then of course a third circle or higher mage would mistake it for me having reached fifth circle magic. Hayu waved his hand and hurriedly explained, "No, that's not it. I haven't reached the fifth circle yet." Hearing that, Kangen's voice rose with interest. "I see. So how were you able to use second circle magic, Mr. Hayu?" He felt awkward seeing the excitement clearly written on the man's face. "If I told you it was a visual art, you probably wouldn't believe me, would you?" Kangen stroked his chin. "A visual art? You mean the transformation magic you mentioned in the previous interview, correct?" The image of Hayu's confident demonstration from before flashed through his mind, and Hayu immediately agreed with Kangen's line of thought. "That's right, it's transformation magic," Hayu thought. "Let's just go with that." He gave a forced smile. Even so, reaching the fifth circle at the age of 18 is incredibly hard to believe. This news would cause a worldwide sensation. Then, when I use third circle magic, it will definitely cause trouble, Hayu told himself. I have to hide this for now. Kangen questioned again. The visual art is certainly amazing, but what about the second circle magic? His eyes were fixed on him, as if trying to see right through everything. Hayu was also flustered by this unexpected question. I improved the imprinting spell. When Kangen heard that, he exclaimed in surprise, "Improved the imprinting spell?" Then he stood up, figuring this was the only way. Kangen sighed as he walked over and struck a cool pose, looking truly amazing. His pupils suddenly turned red, then reached out as if to attack his opponent, but unexpectedly did a complete 181-degree turn, smiling cheerfully and placing a hand on Hadu's shoulder. "I'm very impressed. I can't believe you even improved upon the weaknesses of engraving." His voice was a bit flustered. "Thank you." When Hadu looked up, he suddenly realized Kangen's red eyes and his expression had turned serious. His red eyes were fixed on the boy. Hadu pressed his lips together, looking tense as if afraid Kangen would discover something. The entire room instantly fell silent, filled with a suffocating atmosphere. A few seconds passed, the corners of his mouth curved up again, and he withdrew the hand, pressing firmly on Hadu. "It's confirmed." Kangen turned away, looking back over his shoulder to finish his sentence. "There's no trace of mana from a fifth-level mage. I'm certain now." He smiled brightly, but Hadu already said he hasn't reached the fifth level. "Now, if you'll excuse me." Kangen's finger came up to gently push his glasses, along with the announcement, "I will explain everything to the press. The Crimson Ruby Magic Eye has verified it." After hearing this, Hadu quickly stood up. He bowed in farewell until Kangen's figure disappeared behind the door. Hadu remained in that position, silent for a long while. He straightened up and ran a hand through his hair. "Thank you. Please get home safely." Hadu still found it hard to believe. He couldn't believe the Tower Master would use the Crimson Ruby Magic Eye for verification. He thought, the Crimson Ruby Magic Eye of the Blue Tower's master, Kang In's magic eye can see through the very essence of mana, considered the strongest clairvoyant magic eye in the world. Hadu wondered if he got away with it because the Tower Master didn't catch on. His resolve was firm. His Bayer-style magic was his biggest secret and couldn't be recklessly revealed. The next day, at the arena, the announcer shouted, "The match is over." The result announcement rang out. "The winner is Hadu." His expression was unwavering, as if he had just sailed through the match effortlessly. As Hadu turned to leave, a voice suddenly called out from behind, "Wait." He reflexively turned his head to look at Adela. Hadu asked curiously, "I thought you'd be out for about 4 hours, but you're already back?" She replied softly, "Yeah, I'm fine now." He put his hands on his hips. "So, what's up?" Adela hesitated for a moment. "It's nothing major. I wanted you to review our match." Her cheeks turned red, and her gaze became evasive. "The finals are still coming up, so if you're tired, we can talk later." Hadu happily accepted. "No need, let's talk now," he continued. "Reviewing it will be helpful for me too. Follow me to the waiting room." Upon getting his agreement, Adela's eyes instantly lit up. She looked at the person walking ahead of her and thought, just like the previous match, there wasn't much to learn in terms of tactics and magic usage. Someday, I also. Adela clenched her fists with determination. Someday I want to be like that too. Hadu awkwardly scratched his head, feeling an incredibly intense heat from behind him. At the same time, in a towering skyscraper, inside an incredibly spacious and luxurious room, a girl was watching Hadu's image on a screen and monologuing, "Hadu, I thought it was all over?" C turned around angrily. "Brother, are you just going to let Hadu be?" Jihan gave a faint smile. "What else can we do?" Hearing this, she became even more panicked. "What if they bring Hadu back home? Do you remember what happened 1 year ago? You know better than anyone." C's voice was filled with resentment. "Do we have to be treated like that again?" Seeing her intense reaction, he sighed. Don't worry, see. Jihan looked at the screen showing Hadu receiving the trophy. He said contemptuously. 1 year ago, that kid might have been a genius, but now he's just a piece of trash, only able to use second-level magic in a real match. Jihan smirked, glancing at C beside him. You watched his match too, didn't you? She shouted angrily. But brother, everyone's going crazy over how great he supposedly is. He moved closer and put an arm around C's shoulder. Listen carefully, C. Jihan began to reassure her. All of his recent opponents were just around the third-level student mark. He can easily take them down. But Hadu has a fatal weakness. He's not compatible with AI magic. He just barely manages to compensate for it by using tricks and low-level spells. His eyes showed clear contempt. In the end, Hadu is still far inferior to a normal 4th-level mage. After all, his skill level is too low. C also tried to compose herself. Believed those words. So it's really true? That's what I thought too. Jihan was determined to crush him completely. It was true. No matter how hard he tried, he would always be groveling in the dirt. He calmly took a sip of his drink. Someone incompatible would always be incompatible. She bit her nails, a hint of worry creeping in. What if by some chance, he threatened the position of the next family head? Her words made Jihan's gaze waver, and in an instant, the coffee cup in his hand shattered. A dangerous look flashed across his face. We can deal with it later. It won't be too late. The sky slowly turned red as the sun set. At the competition venue, a few people were still standing on the stage when a contestant suddenly collapsed and fainted on the ground. The referee saw this and blew the whistle. The match was over. The announcer declared that the champion of the second-year midterm exam was Hadu. Immediately, the entire stadium erupted in praise. The genius has returned. Amazing. So cool. Everyone there fixed their eyes on Hadu, as expected of the Shin family. Truly astonishing. He smiled brightly, waving to the audience from the stage, basking in all the cheers. Forbidden magic that surpasses even AI magic, Hadu is a true genius. Afterwards, Suan quickly ran down. Hadu, you were so cool. He grabbed Hadu's shoulders and shook him vigorously. You really did it. Everyone acknowledges your skills now. Congratulations. Hadu couldn't handle the excitement and cried out, Suan, calm down. A few feet away, some sore losers muttered mockingly. What's with that guy? Without forbidden magic, he's nothing. Teacher Jiangsu also approached cheerfully. Congratulations, Hadu. As your homeroom teacher, I'm very proud of you. Suan excitedly asked, Teacher, are you going to treat us to celebrate Hadu's victory? He sighed helplessly. Suan, please. The teacher laughed heartily. I've already planned to treat all of you. You don't even have to ask. Hearing that, he threw his arm around Hadu's shoulder and jumped for joy. Awesome, that's great. Let's go, come with us. Hadu spoke up. Wait, his expression was one of resignation. I'm sorry, I really want to go, but I have an important meeting. Suan stepped back in surprise. Oh man, come on. His voice was filled with regret. What's a party without the guest of honor? Hadu waved goodbye. Sorry, it's really important. A moment later, he hurriedly left. I'm sorry, Swan. Hadu rushed out to the main street. I have a very important promise to keep. He maintained a determined expression. Looking straight ahead, Hadu walked to a car parked nearby, and the driver spoke. We've been waiting for you, he said respectfully. Young master. The driver bowed slightly and gestured towards the inside of the car. The family head is waiting for you. I will escort you to the main house. By the time the car arrived at the mansion, it was already dusk. Hadu got out of the car and stood before the massive doors. He was facing the house he hadn't seen in a year. Hadu recalled that ever since being deemed incompatible with AI magic, after rebelling against his cold-hearted father and moving into the academy's dormitory, he had never been allowed to set foot in the house again. He pushed the door open and walked into the main hall. Hadu glanced around the space. Nothing had changed. Everything was just as he remembered. He silently walked across the cold floor. Hadu suddenly stopped in front of a room. Thinking of In-hyu's distant expression, he tensed up and clenched his fists. Father's study. Hadu stared straight at the room. I'm finally back here. He raised his hand and knocked lightly on the wooden door. In-hyu was sitting at his desk. He was frowning, his gaze as sharp and cold as ever. In-hyu's icy voice came from within. Come in. Hadu entered the room and bowed. It's been a while. He slightly raised his head to meet his father's eyes. Father. In-hyu closed the book he was reading and said, Sit. His tone was cold. I used to think you were completely useless, In-hyu said as he walked past Hadu, with a casting speed 20 times slower than average, and a slight mistake would result in a failed casting, not to mention being unable to multicast. He stopped behind him. Back then, you were the prime example of a good-for-nothing who couldn't fight. In-hyu placed a hand on the back of the chair, but everyone still thought you might have some other special talent, so I told you to switch to AI magic to maximize your potential. He spoke without looking at Hadu. Of course, I didn't have high hopes for it. I just saw it as the last resort of a desperate person, he replied clearly. I understand, father. In-hyu recalled a piece of news. Just recently, he returned. The one once called the genius Ha-do, but due to his incompatibility with AI magic, many doubted his comeback. With his recent performance on the Obelic Academy's midterm exam, Ha-do might be on the verge of a major comeback. The entire nation is starting to take notice of him as the youngest son of the prestigious Medosan family. At 5 years old, Ha-do mastered first-level magic, and by the age of 7, he had perfected his spellcasting. Ha-do was once considered the pride of his family, renowned for its long history and the massive magic stone business of the Shin Corporation, and was expected to inherit the position of family head, but he failed, disappointing both his father and the public. His father turned his back on Ha-do. Furthermore, I read the article from the Biga site. I saw it as a good opportunity for you to regain your honor after your previous failure. However, In-hyuk's voice was tinged with a hint of pride. You've surpassed all my expectations, despite that incompatibility. In his mind, an image of the boy creating transformation magic appeared. In-hyuk gestured towards Ha-do, emphasizing each word. This time, you won, Ha-do. The corner of his mouth curved into a smile, a far cry from his usual cold demeanor. You deserve to be called a true mage now. Hearing this, the boy's eyes widened as if he couldn't believe he was receiving such recognition from his father. Immediately, Ha-do shot to his feet. Thank you, father. In-hyuk declared. From now on, the family will devote all its resources to nurturing you. He continued to instruct. Tell me whatever you need, and I will also approve your return to the Medosan family. In-hyuk pointed, his voice filled with trust. As the legitimate heir to the family headship, bring glory to our name. The boy smiled brightly, his eyes showing clear determination. In-hyuk raised his index finger. And I want to remind you of one thing, he warned. If I find you delaying or slacking off in your training, I will destroy your magic circle. In-hyuk placed a hand on Ha-do's forehead, his stern voice laced with a terrifying pressure. The boy tensed and clenched his fists. So this is the overwhelming aura of an 8-circle mage? How terrifying. But this is also my last chance. Ha-do tried to remain calm and looked straight at him. Yes, father. In-hyuk returned to his seat and asked in a low voice. So, what is your goal? The boy asked back. You're asking about my goal? He repeated once more. Yes, you once wanted to become the head of the Medosan family, did you not? In-hyuk's expression was serious. John-si, Jin-hyuk, Minji, currently, you are the weakest among your siblings. Ha-do placed a hand on his chest and replied firmly, I've told you before, father, my one and only goal is to become the head of the family. That's it. First, I will make everyone remember my name. He asked curiously. How will you do that? The boy's hand touched a newspaper on the table. By participating in. Ha-do said decisively. The World Academy Olympics, which takes place in 2 months. Contestants from all over the world will be there to compete, he smirked confidently, and I will bring home the gold medal. Ha-do thought to himself, the Olympics for mages is held annually and always welcomes mages under the age of 20, also known as the Magic Olympics. It attracts worldwide attention on par with professional tournaments. In-hyuk suddenly spoke up, but the person with the best record from our country, the master of the Blue Magic Tower, only won a silver medal. He recalled the image of that man receiving the award that year. In-hyuk's voice was skeptical. And you plan to win the gold medal? That sounds completely unrealistic. You see that too, don't you? Ha-do replied. Yes, which is why I want to set a condition. He was curious. A condition? The boy made his request. Yes, for the next 2 months, please stop my siblings from interfering with me. Hearing this, In-hyuk remarked, That's bold of you, using a near impossible feat to bargain for temporary protection. He thought to himself, normally I would refuse such an unreasonable request, but then a smile full of anticipation appeared on his face. But this time is different. The next day, in a room at the academy's dormitory, numerous books were scattered messily on the floor. Sunlight from outside crept through the window, shining on the soundly sleeping Ha-do. The rays of light woke him up. Ha-do rubbed his eyes and wondered, did I fall asleep again? He sat up against the bed, pondering. After I got back from my father's place, I started looking at the criteria for the second test. I've already passed the first test, but to reach the third magic circle, I have to pass the second test. Right now, I have no idea where to start. The only thing I know about is resonance, which means I have to increase my affinity with magic, the most difficult stage of the second circle. Ha-do flipped open the book. To pass the test, I have to touch this and control mana. Following the principle of resonance, he placed his hand on the page filled with incantations. A little trick I know is that I need the Ring of Judgment and the Ring of Resonance for the most effective connection. This handwriting is terrible. Ha-do held out his hand and began to practice. Is it like this? He created the 2 magic rings in an instant. A few minutes passed, and Do was once again engrossed in his studies. He suddenly sighed, I should go for a walk to clear my head. A moment later, in the city center, Ha-do had changed into different clothes. He strolled leisurely by the lake. Yeah, taking a walk every now and then is really relaxing. He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath, enjoying the fresh air. After finishing breakfast and going for a relaxing walk, I feel like I have a better grasp of resonance now. As Ha-do was relaxing, a piercing scream suddenly rang out. Hey, watch out! He reflexively turned his head in that direction, only to see a white object flying straight towards him. Ha-do was hit right in the face by a plastic bag. The girl ran over, asking, Are you okay? He had fallen to the ground, clutching his face and crying out, Ouch, that hurts. Ha-do looked up, his face still smarting. When he saw the worried girl in front of him, he was surprised. Adela. A little later, the two of them were walking together. Ha-do asked confusedly, Anyway, why did that plastic thing fly at me? Adela hesitated for a moment. Well, she thought back to what happened earlier. I was happily spinning it because I was excited to drink my banana milk, then it just flew off. He replied, I get it. Adela awkwardly bowed her head. I'm so sorry. Ha-do gently shook the milk bottle he was holding. It's okay, thanks to you. I got some banana milk too. But, is this still the only thing you drink? She opened her plastic bag, which was filled with milk, to show him. Of course, it's the best drink humans have ever made. Ha-do found that hard to believe. That's way, way too much. Right then, the sky was incredibly clear. Adela broke the silence. I heard you came home. Ha-do smiled and replied honestly. Yeah, I returned to the magic tower yesterday. Her face lit up when she heard that. That's great. Do you still want to become the tower master? Ha-do was a little stunned by Adela's question. Did I say that? She remembered when the two of them were kids. Yeah, we used to talk about that. He rubbed his chin. No, that's not my dream anymore. Adela was astonished by his denial. What? Did you finally face reality? She mumbled sympathetically. Well, considering the tower master has so many exceptional siblings, becoming the head of the family is no easy feat. Seeing Adela muttering to herself, Ha-do asked, Huh? What are you saying? He gave a slight smile, his determined expression unwavering. My dream is to become a master magician and stand at the very top of the entire world of mages. Ambition shone in Ha-do's eyes. No, the entire magic tower, he stressed. That is my goal. Adela was in awe. The pinnacle of the entire world of mages? That's an incredible goal. It's beyond imagination. She beamed, feeling an intense sense of admiration for him as his follower. At night, countless stars twinkled across the sky. Inside the vast magic tower, C was nervously biting her nails, her hands clenched into trembling fists. Unable to contain herself, she slammed her fist on the table. Brother, C questioned, aren't you worried at all? Jihan remained calm with his arms crossed. Father must have his reasons. Immediately after, he frowned thoughtfully. I can't believe he set conditions like that. Jihan recalled the earlier meeting in Hyuk's office, where he had asked, Father, did you call us here for a reason? His expression was stern. I know both of your personalities well, so I am ordering you not to lay a hand on Ha-do for the next 2 months. Jihan and C were stunned as if struck by lightning. She shouted resentfully, Father, why? In contrast to her impatience, he managed to stay calm and held C back. Father, can you please tell us why? Hyuk explained. Both of you know that Ha-do officially returned to the magic tower yesterday. He is still a minor and has been away from the family for 1 year. Therefore, I believe it is necessary to give him 2 months to adapt to the family again. The two of them were extremely dissatisfied but dared not object. Hyuk rubbed his temples. You two especially will be scrutinizing him, looking for ways to compete for the position of family head. Jihan bit his lip, trying to contain the rage burning within him. He forced a gentle smile. Yes, I understand. Father, is there anything else? He turned his gaze out the window. That is all. You two must be tired. Go and rest. Returning to the present, Zia, seeing her brother's prolonged silence, urged him, Brother, why are you leaving without a word? It was as if she saw something, and her expression quickly changed. The words caught in her throat as veins bulged on Jihan's forehead. He looked absolutely ferocious at that moment. Damn it. I can't accept this. Jihan analyzed the situation. Jin Hyuk and Minji Ji aren't interested in vying for the position of family head, so I understand why they weren't called to the meeting. But to just let Ha-do off the hook because he was away for 1 year? If this were the father I used to know, he would have told us to endure it, saying that a 1-year gap makes someone unqualified to be the heir. Besides, the protection afforded to the younger members only applies up to the age of 16, before the imprinting process takes place. That means being 17 is already past that point. He scowled in anger. Then why? Why would he say something like that? Zia's face suddenly filled with panic. Could it be that father has already? Jihan quickly dismissed her thought. No, that's not it. Ha-do still hasn't proven enough to father, Zia wondered. Then what could it be? he thought to himself. Perhaps father saw some kind of potential. Jihan made his assessment. Either father is intrigued by the mysterious system Ha-Du possesses, or it's possible that father and Ha-Du have struck some kind of deal. Hearing this, Zia grew even more agitated. A deal? What kind of deal could it be? She angrily ran her hands through her hair. You're right. Father wouldn't make a decision like this on a whim. This is so frustrating, Zaya asked, annoyed. Should we call back all the people we sent to tail him? Jihan sighed. We probably should, unless they're confident they won't be discovered by the Shadow Guards. He thought to himself. The Shadow Guards. Father's direct intelligence unit, operating as the tower's secret force, an elite team specializing in infiltration, intelligence gathering, and escort missions. There was no task they couldn't handle, Jihan informed Saya. Just so we're clear, I've already withdrawn all surveillance on Ha-Du, she asked in a low voice, her eyes filled with worry. Brother, what are you planning to do? He glanced at her without answering. I'm heading out. Jihan strode away, gritting his teeth, a sinister look on his face. Even if Zia agrees, sitting around doing nothing for 2 months isn't my style. If Ha-Du really struck some deal with father, it's too risky. I'll have to consult the Black Tower. On a warm morning at Obelic Academy, the instructor proudly addressed the class. The midterm exams have concluded, and you all did very well. First of all, our class has the honor of having the top-ranked student. Let's give him a round of applause. Amidst the praise from his classmates, Ha-Du slowly stood up. Ha-Du. The teacher approached and presented him with the prestigious certificate of achievement. You've ranked first in the entire nation. Congratulations. He bowed politely and replied succinctly, Thank you, sir. The teacher looked at him fondly before speaking in a serious tone. Having achieved first place, you must now maintain that rank for the next 2 months and participate in the Academy's tournament. Ha-Du wasn't the least bit intimidated, his eyes shining with determination. Yes, sir, I was planning on it. As Ha-Du returned to his seat, a few students began to make sarcastic comments. They were trying to downplay his achievement. He's acting so smug for someone who won using illusion magic. The two of them huddled together and whispered spitefully, Him, win? I bet he'll lose that rank within a week. Exactly. What else can you expect from an outcast? Ha-Du paid no mind to their mockery, slowly sitting down in his seat. He looked as calm as if nothing had happened. Su-chan stretched wearily. Finally, it's over, he complained to Ha-Du. Why did we have to sit through 8 theory classes? At least tomorrow is all practical training. Su-chan was about to say more, but before he could finish his complaint, Ha-Du playfully jabbed him in the chest. See? I told you that you need to work out. Su-chan dramatically collapsed to the ground. Ha-Du just shot him a look. Are you even a real mage? You're so weak. Su-chan's face darkened with frustration. He ran after Ha-Du to tease him back, but was met with a dismissive wave. You, who's so bad at magic, can't even be teased with magic anymore? If you're that mad, then try and surpass me. Su-chan gritted his teeth in anger. I'll get stronger than you and punch you back one day. Ha-Du quickly turned with a smirk. Oh, really? In that case, how about we head to the training hall after dinner for a change of pace? Su-chan froze on the spot, completely unresponsive. Ha-Du glanced at him with a cool expression. What's with that attitude? Su-chan avoided his gaze and stammered. Well, I'd love to, but I can't right now. Ha-Du crossed his arms, looking slightly annoyed. If you don't want to, just say it. Su-chan stepped closer, placing a hand on Ha-Du's shoulder. No, let me be blunt. It's not that I hate training, I just hate training with you. Understand? Those words made Ha-Du freeze. Su-chan lowered his head and let out a frustrated sigh. The truth is, I was a little scary. His voice echoed under the blue sky. The way everyone stared at him at the Obelisk Academy training room, Ha-Yun was training like a madman, while everyone else watched him with astonished eyes. Ha-Yun trained while cursing inwardly. What the hell are you doing, you fool? I told you training was more important. Everyone in the gym was stunned by Ha-Yun's formidable physical strength. Who is that guy? Can a human really lift that much? Suddenly, someone exclaimed, That's Shin Ha-Yun, the second year who got first place on the midterm exam. Ha-Yun paid no mind to the chatter. He calmly set the barbell down and then slowly left the gym. His mind was still preoccupied with thoughts on the balance between magic and physical strength. I focused so much on mastering release-type magic that I've been neglecting my physical training. I almost completely forgot. Ha-Yun took a sip of water. He suddenly remembered something from a book. It was even written clearly in the Book of Idris. The book stated that the infinite magic circle flows throughout the entire body. It's linked to one's physical condition. A strong body combined with a powerful magic circle creates a synergy that improves overall efficiency. He then moved on to other exercises like jogging and lifting dumbbells. With each rep, he reminded himself that he had to master both magic and physical training to optimize his physical strength. Back at Obelisk Academy, a ferocious black panther was staring intently at Ha-Yun, as if he were its prey. Hyun was facing a difficult combat test. He was surrounded by three large and powerful black panthers. Baring their fangs and claws, they lunged at him with lightning speed. Hyun deftly retreated, dodging their dangerous attacks. Suddenly, his eyes widened in astonishment. Hyun immediately used his magic to counterattack. However, the panthers weren't easily tricked. They coordinated and swiftly dodged his counters. In a split second, Hyun ducked low, causing two of the panthers to crash painfully into each other. Then, Hyun gathered his mana, and a fireball appeared in his hand. Fire Mountain. The flames instantly consumed the unfortunate panther, and while the last one tried to flee, it couldn't escape its fate. The battle ended, and an announcement echoed through the hall. Shin Hyun, monster combat training complete. Instructor Jang observed, analyzing the results. After a thorough check, he nodded in satisfaction. Perfect, a maximum score. Hyun smiled, pleased. Thank you, instructor. While resting, he stared intently at his hand. Hyun's mind began to drift. Thanks to the infinite magic circle, my physical abilities have improved by 1.5 times. He clenched his fist, calculating to himself, if I can achieve the third circle, I'll become even stronger. I have to strengthen the infinite magic circle quickly. Then, Hyun closed his eyes, slowly sensing the energy gradually enveloping him. He was now in a state of deep concentration. The surrounding flow of energy grew stronger. The circle of will, the circle of resonance, pushing both types of mana to circulate throughout his body. Hyun wasn't just sensing the energy circles, he was controlling them. He adjusted the vibration frequency and rotation speed of each circle by 12.25% and 4.63% respectively. The circle of will and the circle of resonance began to shift their angles. They gradually drew closer. Then he increased the mana purity of the circle of will by 8.9%. As the two energy circles came close to merging, Hyun cheered himself on internally, just a little more. But at that exact moment, the process stalled. He panted for breath, sweat dotting his forehead. Hyun's eyes showed his exhaustion and disappointment. A 99% synchronization rate. No matter how many hundreds of thousands of times I try, I can't seem to get that last 1%. But he quickly composed himself, clenching his fist. However, I will master the magic circles, no matter the cost. Night began to fall, with clouds drifting on the wind. As Hyun walked quietly down the road, he suddenly sensed a faint killing intent behind him. At first, he dismissed it as his imagination, but the persistent feeling of being watched wouldn't go away. So Hyun decided to make a move, speeding up his pace. A shadowy figure up ahead was silently watching. As the distance closed, the figure suddenly lunged forward, throwing a vicious punch. With lightning-fast reflexes, Hyun dodged to the side. His eyes glinted with suspicion and wariness. "Who are you?" Seeing the familiar face, Hyun froze for a second. He called out the person's name in surprise. "Be Sahi." Sahi didn't say a word, and simply charged forward to attack Hyun. But with his sharp reflexes and inherent composure, Hyun continuously dodged her attacks. It was all thanks to his agility. That move made Sahi-hook even more bitter. "You're really something, only good at dodging like a rat." Unfazed by his opponent's aggression, Hadu sat down, took off his headphones and spoke calmly. "What's up? Not going home for the weekend?" He then looked up, his eyes showing unconcealed pity, his tone laced with sarcasm. "Ah, it's not that you aren't going home, but that you can't, right?" His words were like daggers stabbing into Sahyuk's heart. He was on probation, so he couldn't go home even if he wanted to. "Huh?" Hearing that, he trembled with rage. "Shut your mouth before I kill you!" But Hadu just smirked, maintaining his calm and teasing demeanor. "Haha, so you used your family's power that much and this is the result? Even if I weren't on probation, I wouldn't go home. It's just too embarrassing, haha." Hadu's demeanor now was exactly the same as when he'd teased Sahyuk before. His embarrassment turning to rage, Sahyuk unleashed a fiery attack on Hadu. "Shut your mouth, you useless bastard!" Hadu couldn't believe he would dare to do such a thing. "Is that bastard really going to attack me with that? Using magic right out here on the street?" Sahyuk charged forward madly. "You son of a bee." With a single glance, Hadu grasped his attack pattern. He quickly grabbed Sahyuk's arm, while his other hand struck the back of his shoulder. Sahyuk's body instantly went rigid. Hadu sked softly, then spun and slammed Sahyuk to the ground. Hadu stared down at him with a cold, dangerous look. Even pinned to the ground, Sahyuk didn't stop cursing. "Let me go, you damn bastard!" Just then, an idea sparked in Hadu's mind. This was an opportunity for him. The police arrived on the scene instantly. Sahyuk refused to surrender and kept struggling. "Let me go. I'm going to kill that bastard today." The police officers were still trying to restrain him. "Quiet down. We'll talk later. Let me go." Hadu went over to report the incident. "I had to stop him because he was attacking me with magic." He then glanced over at the surveillance camera on the wall. Hadu let out a small cough. acting as if he couldn't believe he would use magic in a place like this. That guy. The officer nodded in agreement. We will discuss this in more detail tomorrow at the academy. It's late now. You should go back to your dorm. Meanwhile, Sahyuk refused to get in the car, still arguing with the police. A thought popped into Hadu's head. Let him keep making a scene. The next morning at Ober Academy, a large crowd had gathered in front of the bulletin boards in the Grand Hall. Everyone was focused on the disciplinary notice for Sahyuk. Did you hear? Bitch Sahyuk used magic in public over the weekend. What a mess. For real? Below was a detailed announcement from the academy's office. Bish Sahyuk was penalized 10 points for using magic off campus. The students looked at each other, bewildered. But why was it only 10 points? Is that it? Right. Isn't that usually enough to get someone expelled? Ha-Du, who was just passing by, overheard the gossip and couldn't help but ponder. He thought to himself, Bitch Sahyuk caused so much trouble and only lost 10 points. Just as I expected, Sahyuk was a notorious playboy young master thanks to the swift intervention of the B family. The B family, a new noble house, had donated an enormous amount of money to the academy to earn their title, so the academy couldn't punish him too harshly. As Ha-Du walked along, he mused, Bish Sahyuk is probably getting chewed out right now. And just as he predicted, in a secluded corner, the moment Sahyuk answered his phone, he was viciously berated. Hey, you fool! He hesitantly apologized. Father, I'm sorry. But the voice on the other end continued to berate him. I told you to just lay low until graduation. The furious voice continued to boom from the other end of the line. Was that so hard? Suppressing his anger, he replied, Ah, no, sir. The verbal lashing was wearing on Sahyuk's patience, but he tried to bear it. If our family doesn't secure its title, it will be all your fault. You hear me? Yes, I'm sorry. Sahyuk was just about to say, I'll keep that in mind. When the line went dead, he glared at his phone and hissed bitterly, Damn it! Sahyuk roared uncontrollably and violently smashed his phone on the ground. He then gritted his teeth and spat out Shin Ha-Du's name, his eyes filled with rage and resentment. Shin Ha-Du. Overcome with fury, Sahyuk stomped on his phone, cursing nonstop. That bastard! He madly blamed everything on Ha-Du. Everything, it's all that bastard's fault. Consumed by his own frantic rage, Sahyuk had no idea someone was standing right behind him. He only froze, startled, when Smith's deep voice spoke up. Oh my, it looks like you have a grudge against Ha-Yul, don't you? Caught red-handed in a state of chaos, he didn't bother hiding his insolence. What about Professor Smith? Is that not allowed? The professor replied with an amused laugh. Of course not. It's your right to like or dislike someone. But listen here. Sahyuk. Smith stepped closer, the smile on his face slowly turning cold. Don't you want to get revenge on Shin Ha-Yul? Sahyuk was quite surprised by the question, but it wasn't just a simple inquiry. It was an invitation that wormed its way into his mind, stirring the desire for revenge hidden deep within Sahyuk's heart. Isn't that what you want? The area outside the dormitory was completely silent. In his clean and tidy room, Ha-Yul sat lost in thought at his desk. He was currently deep in contemplation. After the incident with Baek Sahyuk, I could have fought back, but in reality, I also gained something from this. A new message notification popped up on the phone in Ha-Yul's hand. The email was from his father. The gist of it was that negotiations with the Baek family were over. In exchange for their silence on the matter, they received 3% of the Baek family's mining rights. At the end, his father didn't forget to praise Ha-Yul. Well done. Let me know if there's anything you want as a reward. Ha-Yul let out a small smile, a fleeting sense of satisfaction washing over him. He started to think more deeply. For the Baek family to earn a title, they couldn't just focus on the academy. They also had to maintain good relations with other prestigious families. In that case, they would have to resort to special measures. The Baek family made the right call. After a moment of rational analysis, he drew a conclusion. Ultimately, the victim in this incident was none other than himself, the direct heir of the Shin family. Ha-Yul continued to scroll on his phone. His thoughts continued to swirl like the tide. No matter the cost, the Baek family wanted to resolve this scandal. But these conditions truly highlighted the importance of a title to a family. A title is a symbol of a family's status. It's considered the family's symbol, like a mage from a mage family or a sorcerer from a sorcerer family. This title defines a family's standing. Sahyuk's impulsive actions replayed in Ha-Yul's mind. Baek Sahyuk was essentially exiled from the Baek family over this. With his level of skill, he couldn't possibly harm me. He picked up a book and let out a sigh of relief. Now that everything's settled, I should forget about becoming some old man Noi and focus on improving my farming techniques. Back at Obelic Academy, people bustled to and fro on campus as Ha-Yul walked and observed quietly. I wonder if the instructors are being monitored more closely because of the Baek Sahyuk incident. Suddenly, Ha-Yul heard someone call his name, Shin Ha-Yul. He turned around and forced a smile. Hello, Professor Smith. The professor let out a small hum, then narrowed his eyes menacingly at him. Ha-Yul met his gaze with a calm expression. Abruptly, Smith's demeanor shifted to become strangely affable. I've noticed for a while now, Ha-Yul, it seems you really don't like me, do you? Ha-Yul replied politely. Yes, that's correct. No, I don't. Smith tilted his head, his eyes feigning a look of deep understanding. I get it. I know I said some harsh things to you before, but it was all meant as sincere advice, so please don't get the wrong idea. Ha-Yul maintained a casual smile, though he was on high alert internally. Yes, sir. Why is he suddenly acting this way? Smith's smile was a deceitful mask. He reached his hand out to Ha-Yul. So, why don't we start over? He gave a small smile and bluntly refused. No thank you, Professor. Suddenly, a strange feeling welled up inside him. Smith, don't. Surrounded by an invisible dark aura, Ha-Yul sensed something was amiss. What is this unsettling feeling? The professor was still smiling. His tone was sweet, but sickeningly fake. It's a bit late, but congratulations on taking first place in the midterms, and I sincerely hope you find your own path. Ha-Yul clenched his jaw, trying to fight against the invisible pressure bearing down on him. This is mana, isn't it? But now, Smith's entire body was enveloped in a current of dark magic, and the longer Ha-Yul looked, the more intense his unease grew. This ominous, dark magic. Looking at that vicious, probing smile and gaze, an answer suddenly clicked in his mind. The Black Tower. Thinking about this possibility, Ha-Yul's face quickly paled, and sweat began to pour down. An image of a towering, yet sinister and dangerous Black Tower instantly appeared in his mind. Unlike the 12 recognized towers, this was an unofficial tower that followed a different path. A group of depraved criminals founded by a rogue mage who, known as the Dark Sorcerer King. Hadu's expression tensed as he cursed inwardly. Damn it, Professor Smith is connected to the Black Tower. In his eyes, Smith was like a spider monster, spinning his web. A million questions raced through his mind. This means there are other mages from the Black Tower in the Academy. How? Since when? Hadu watched him warily, denying it in his head. No, that's not important right now. A sharp, cold glint flashed in his eyes as he made a silent decision. First, I need to understand the magic formula to assess the situation. Immediately after, a series of different formulas suddenly appeared around the two of them. Hadu's eyes lit up, stunned to realize the magic formula looked all too familiar. This is a mind control spell. He frowned deeply with worry. Wait a minute, mind control? But my brain resists all external interference, so Professor Smith's mind control spell won't work on me. Hadu breathed a sigh of relief, reassuring himself. Thanks to this, I'll survive this. Looking at the people around the academy still chatting lively, he narrowed his eyes to assess the scene. They haven't noticed yet, so what's the next step? Hadu closed his eyes and muttered, I'll pretend to be affected by this spell and dig up more information on the Black Tower. When he opened his eyes again, his once lively eyes were now completely vacant. Smith waved a hand back and forth to check for a moment, then clicked his tongue. Very good. The man raised a hand to stroke his chin disdainfully. An idiot who can't even use an AI chip, yet he managed to make me apologize. Then, Smith stepped right up to him and called out in a low voice, Hadu, listen carefully. He dropped a strange chip into the boy's hand and gave an order. From now on, you must always carry this with you, and don't ask why. That's all. Like a mindless puppet, Hadu blankly tilted his head up and replied, Yes. Inwardly, he was extremely suspicious. That's it? Just then, Smith suddenly turned with a cold smile and asked, And Hadu, explain your magic variant. He jumped, thinking in alarm. I can't talk about this. So Hadu immediately clutched his head, feigning agony before the man's startled eyes, watching him groan. Smith remarked coldly. It seems the unconscious desire to keep his art a secret is very strong. Finally, the man couldn't hold back and gave a command. All right, stop. Seeing this, Hadu immediately flashed a sly, triumphant smile. Even so, he couldn't stop thinking about the mind control magic. It interferes with the target's brain, amplifying their emotions or controlling them at will. A magic that symbolizes the Black Tower. If a high-level mage were to use this spell, it could even cause the person's mind to collapse, making it an incredibly dangerous forbidden art. Hadu bent over, deep in thought. And as I just saw, if the person under the spell has a strong will regarding specific memories, trying to extract them can make their mind collapse. Seeing how easily he gave up, it seems my magic variant isn't the target he's after. Smith gritted his teeth in anger at the sight. Then he rubbed his forehead in disgust, constantly lamenting that the boy had an art unfitting of his station, so I tried to sell you off cheap. Right, I can't let this mission fail. After a moment of hesitation, Smith snapped his fingers. Then, after the mission is over, I'll take that art of yours. After the spell was lifted, Hadu pretended to be bewildered, as if he didn't know what just happened. Seeing this, the man called out to him. Smith gave Hadu a gentle smile and asked, Are you all right? You zoned out while we were talking, you must be tired. I won't bother you anymore. Good luck. He pretended to be dazed as he replied, Yes, I understand. Watching the man slowly retreating back, Ha-Du's expression became more serious than ever. It was now the academy's lunch break, and the courtyard was full of students walking around in groups. They chatted as they walked. I'm starving. Let's hit the cafe. He had walked past them yesterday with a heavy heart, hiding in some corner of the academy. Now, Ha-Du sat with a grim expression, staring at the object in his hand. He held the chip up to eye level, full of suspicion. Ha-Du frowned and muttered, An illegal AI chip, a custom upgrade chip. Giving this to me means their goal is to frame me as a user of an illegal AI. Thinking about the possibility of becoming a target for attack, he realized with frustration that he would end up being dragged through the mud with scandalous headlines. Ha-Du sat on the bench, resting his chin on his hand, completely puzzled. They want to ruin my reputation. Professor Smith, he has no reason to harm me. Of course, there is some bad blood between us, he said in a low voice, but someone must have hired the Black Tower for this. After saying that, Ha-Du frowned and began to calculate. He could now make a rough estimate of the situation, recalling what Sayuk had screamed. I'll kill you. He thought to himself, this mess is beyond the capabilities of someone who's grounded, so it must be one of my 2 older brothers or 2 older sisters. Ha-Du mused in frustration. They want to tarnish my image and completely eliminate me from the succession race. 4 people with a clear motive. First, my eldest sister, Minji-ji, isn't actively involved in the succession struggle, so she's not the type to do this. My oldest brother, Jin Hyuk, is actively involved in the succession struggle, but he doesn't have the guts to pull off something this bold. After ruling out 2 of them, a thought immediately struck Ha-Du, so it must be one of the remaining 2, or maybe even both of them. He clenched his fist, wondering if he should just grab Professor Smith and interrogate him, but remembering the power behind him, Ha-Du suddenly stopped. No, the Black Tower is extremely sensitive about information. Professor Smith probably doesn't even know who the client is, and if I grab him, the information trail will be cut off. Getting on the Black Tower's radar right now isn't good for me. He stood up, his gaze sharpening. So, a short while later, at a high-rise in the middle of downtown, Ha-Du stood silently as the elevator doors opened. Kang-in spoke without turning back. Hello, Ha-Du. Then, he turned to face him, questioning. So, what is it you wanted to tell me? Kang-in's long, narrow eyes immediately squinted, silently sizing up his opponent. Across from him, Ha-Du was also quietly observing the Green Tower Master, Kang-in, who seemed even colder than usual. Looking at the confident man before him, Ha-Du silently steeled his resolve. But right at that moment, under that expectant gaze, Kang-in suddenly covered his face and stammered, I already told you, don't think of yourself as a burden. Seeing this behavior, Ha-Du's resolve hardened even more. It was now or never. He narrowed his eyes, continuing his assessment. It was just like the rumors said, what in the world is he researching that has him this worried? Acting on this thought, Ha-Du immediately stepped forward and asked, Are you researching something? Kang-in didn't hide it and simply pointed to his side. I'm researching a strange magic stone. It's taking much longer than I expected. Hearing this, he repeated with a hint of suspicion, a magic stone. As he was thinking, something nearby caught Ha-Du's attention. Seeing the stone on the table shimmering with the 7 colors of the rainbow, he stared blankly and wondered, that's an elemental manalai. Ha-Du let out an "oh." He glanced at the man before him with a calculating look. This was a rare opportunity indeed. Kang-in flopped down into his chair and said calmly, since we're both busy, let's get straight to the point. He rested his head on his hand, trying to gauge just how important the matter Ha-Du wanted to discuss was. So what was it you needed to tell me in person? Ha-Du wore a speechless, thoughtful expression. You're a little worked up. At this rate, you won't listen to a word I say. Still, he thought to himself. Then it's time to negotiate. With that, Ha-Du sat up straight and began to speak seriously. Before we get to the main topic, there's something I need to tell you. He didn't hesitate to say, the magic stone you're researching, Tower Master, is an elemental manalai. Kang-in was shocked to hear this. He interrogated him with a menacing glare. How do you know that? That name has never been revealed externally, let alone its very existence. Kang-in questioned him angrily. Hey, you better choose your words carefully. A flustered Ha-Du quickly waved his hands to explain. I didn't plant a spy in the Green Tower or steal any information. He narrowed his eyes, asking suspiciously. Then how could you possibly know? Ha-Du answered as he rummaged through his bag. The reason is quite simple. From inside, he pulled out a brilliantly shining manalai stone. I have one too. The moment he saw it, Kang-in shot to his feet in utter shock, exclaiming, This is... Ha-Du held the stone up high, confirming in a low voice. Precisely, this is a perfectly crafted elemental manalai stone. After hearing that, he stammered in disbelief. Ha-Du, could it be that you crafted this with your own hands? At this point, Ha-Du didn't hide it and stated firmly, That's right. It was me. Kang In was stunned for a moment before bursting into laughter and muttering, "That's ridiculous." He frowned, recalling the Red Tower's top magic engineer, Jay Pillar, also known as the greatest magic crafter in the world. Even the master artisans of our Green Tower, who are renowned for their skills, and myself, one of the top 3 crafters in the world. Staring at the shimmering Manalai stone, Kang In realized with frustration that he himself couldn't craft this gem, yet an ordinary high school student could? He still couldn't believe it and pressed, "Ha-do! Is it just a coincidence that you two possess this magic stone?" Ha-do clutched the stone in his hand and calmly replied, "That's right. I discovered the Blue Tower is the only place that can process a magic stone like this. I just happened to bring it with me." Kang In gulped and asked tentatively, "May I ask how you obtained it?" Ha-do looked at the stone and said casually, "There's not much to tell. I just happened to find it and was lucky enough to craft it." As soon as he finished, Kang In's eyes sparkled as he leaned in excitedly. "I knew it! Your luck is on another level." Ha-do could only smile awkwardly in response. Kang In slammed his hand on the table and declared, "All right, mages have the right to keep their secrets." He put on a righteous expression and emphasized, "I won't press you any further." Ha-do smiled happily and replied, "Thank you." Right after that, Kang In pulled out a pair of goggles and gloves, proposing, "May I take a closer look?" Ha-do didn't hesitate to hand over the stone. Of course. Kang In gently lifted the stone, examining it closely. This is the only magic stone in the world that possesses all 4 elements at once. After examining it, Kang In handed it back, not forgetting to ask, "So, what's your purpose for bringing it here?" Ha-do didn't hide anything, casually agreeing, "All right, I want to use it to craft an item." Kang In looked at him suspiciously and asked, "An item? What kind of item do you want?" Then, Kang In started listing options: clothes, accessories, or a weapon. Ha-do nodded along before stating his request, "Anything that can enhance elemental magic performance will do." Looking at the glowing Manalai stone, Kang In pondered, "I see. But a high-grade magic stone also requires high-grade materials. The crafting fee will be quite expensive. Are you okay with that?" Hearing this, Ha-do put on an innocent expression, as if he had no idea. Seeing that look, Kang In gave a fake laugh. "My apologies. You're the descendant of a magic family, aren't you? So I'm sure your family can cover the cost." However, Ha-do quickly denied his words. "No, that won't work." He brought a finger to his lips mysteriously. "This crafting project, I want to keep it a secret from my family and everyone else." Kang In was intrigued by this. "Ha-do, you're quite shrewd. So what about the crafting fee?" Kang In gestured as if writing down the number Ha-do would have to pay. "It will probably be around this much." He asked curiously, "Can you afford it without your family's help?" Ha-do smiled and replied, "No, but in exchange." At this, he gave a very confident smile and muttered, "I have another way." Ha-do excitedly explained his plan. "I will craft the elemental Manai stone right here, in front of you, in front of the master of the magic tower." Kang In was just as excited. "So you're saying you'll teach me the crafting method right now?" He tilted his head back and shouted with excitement, "I love it. That's more than enough to cover the fee. We're even getting a great deal out of this." A moment later, Ha-do hesitated before speaking up. "Then, could I ask for one more favor?" At this point, Kang In, who was extremely pleased with the offer, generously asked back, "What is it? Is it related to today's matter?" A little later, after Kang In sat down, Ha-do hesitantly presented something. "This is..." Kang In examined the chip in his hand and said thoughtfully, "This is a new generation upgrade chip, a type of illegal imprint chip. Where did you get this?" Upon confirmation, Ha-do immediately clenched his fist on his lap. He recounted in a low voice, "A mage from the Black Tower at the Academy gave it to me. There are Black Tower mages infiltrating Obelic Academy. Please help me deal with them." Their conversation lasted until the moon was full. Ha-do stood formally in front of a white car. He leaned his head toward the window, smiling slightly as he reminded her, "Get inside safely. Take care." Sua only glanced over before replying, "Yeah, we'll see each other again soon." He quietly watched the car drive away. A while later, in the empty hallway, after returning to his room, showering and changing, Ha-do comfortably fell onto his soft bed. Recalling the day's events, he happily told himself, "I got lucky." He hadn't expected Kang In to be researching the elemental Manalai. Ha-do put his arm behind his head, silently celebrating that he could now craft the item while keeping it a secret from his father. Suddenly, Sa Hai-wook's scowling face appeared in his mind along with his scolding words, "Ha-do, that kid. I can't let him get away with this." He raised an eyebrow, analyzing the situation. "Originally, I was only going to offer 3% of the shares from BA's mining rights, but now I can keep them. This is perfect." With that thought, Ha-do's eyes slowly closed. If everything goes smoothly, on the other side, Kang In is still, was suspicious after receiving all that information. "It's so hard to believe. I heard the security at Obelisk Academy is incredibly tight," he mumbled, thinking of the Black Tower, yet there's a Black Tower mage hiding there. Going back to this afternoon's conversation, Kang Yi held up the chip and said, "And the only evidence is this chip." Hayu asked a bit impatiently, "Is it that difficult?" He didn't answer but gave a meaningful smile. Then Kang Yi winked and confidently declared, "Normally, we at the Blue Tower wouldn't act based solely on a student's suspicion or unreliable clues. But it's okay. Let's take a risk." Hayu weaved through the crowd, talking on the phone as he walked. The person on the other end asked, "Have you arrived? You?" He replied, "Yes, so I'll be counting on you to carry out the plan." Looking like a badass CEO from behind, Hayu stepped into the elevator. The voice on the phone reassured him, "You don't need to worry. As long as the information is accurate, we at the Blue Magic Tower won't make any mistakes." Hayu replied with absolute certainty, "Yes, I trust you." He promised the person on the phone, "Then I'll be in touch again later." After that, Hayu entered the luxurious restaurant he had arranged for his older siblings from the clan. He said politely, "I've arrived." In front of Hayu were the young lady and young master of the Shin clan, waiting to have a meal with him. Hayu said respectfully, "My dear brothers and sisters." The second young lady of the Shin clan, Minji, warmly welcomed her beloved younger brother after his long absence. "Oh my, it's been so long, Hayu." She ran over to her younger brother. He showered his older sister with compliments. "Long time no see, you haven't changed a bit." Hearing her younger brother's praise, Minji's spirits lifted. She was delighted. "Are you complimenting me?" Hayu's honeyed words flowed shamelessly. "Yes, of course." Minji was visibly excited, playfully ruffling her younger brother's hair. "Hayu, you've gotten so much bigger. Soon, you'll be even taller than Jinhyuk, won't you?" The second young master of the Shin clan, Jinhyuk, heard his sister hit a sore spot and quickly rushed over to do damage control. "Minji, don't talk about things like that." He patted the youngest sibling of the clan on the shoulder. "Welcome back, Hayu. To be honest, it's hard to be completely happy. But welcome back anyway." He gave a forced smile. "Yes, thank you." But he thought to himself, "Brother, you're as blunt as ever." Minji frowned, a little angry. "Brother, why do you always have to say unnecessary things?" Jinhyuk asked blankly. "Did I say something wrong?" Hayu stood for a long moment before looking at the others and finally managed to get a sentence out. "It's been a while." He looked towards the two unpleasant people sitting at the corner of the table, Brother Jihan, Sister Seiya. The eldest young master of the Shin clan, Jihan, finally spoke up. "You're no longer chubby like a child. You're a man instead." The eldest young lady of the Shin clan, Seiya, still wore that sour expression upon seeing her youngest brother after so long. "It's been a long time, youngest brother." Even though Hayu was met with this reception, he still maintained a polite smile. "They're only smiling on the outside, but it's clear they want to eat me alive," he thought to himself. As expected, the culprits are here. Jihan gave a perfunctory smile, raising his glass of red wine. "Let's sit, eat, and talk. I'm curious why our youngest brother called us all here." He looked at Hayu condescendingly. "It's for nothing special, I presume." He politely and naturally responded to the other's sarcastic jab. "I just wanted to see my older brothers and sisters after a long time, so I arranged this gathering." Seiya immediately snapped irritably. "Why did you call all of us here for such a trivial matter?" He wasn't one to be trifled with either, and replied with a veiled remark, "Even if I didn't do it, Brother Jihan or Sister Seiya would have, right?" That single sentence was enough to provoke her instantly, and she flew into a rage, leaning over the table and shouting furiously, "I can't stand this brat!" Seiya pointed her finger in Hayu's face and yelled, "All right, spit it out! What's your plan?" Sensing his advantage, Hayu pressed on, playing dumb as he asked back, "What do you mean by plan?" She was boiling with rage and screamed, "Don't play dumb. Are you planning to join the succession battle or not?" Hayu, looking for trouble, taunted her. "If I said I wasn't interested, would you believe me?" Seiya immediately got fired up. "Who would believe that?" He provoked her further. "Then why did you ask?" She completely lost it. You insufferable brat." Jihan, sitting next to her, gently reminded her, "Seiya, you shouldn't say that. With an issue like this, words aren't enough, you have to prove it with actions." He probed with his fake tone of concern. "By the way, Hayu, I heard you recently acquired a rather impressive type of magic. It's called magic manifestation, isn't it? Can you share that magic with our family?" Hayu was startled by his probing. He carefully analyzed the hidden meaning in every word, thinking it was a clever ploy. Sharing the vision technique would be proof that he was forfeiting the succession race. But then he saw Zia showering Jihan with praise. "Brother, that sounds wonderful." Then he thought to himself, "But this isn't a bluff." Hadu shot to his feet, about to speak. He put on a pitiful face and quietly addressed his cunning siblings. "Brother, sisters, this vision technique is my only hope." Hadu's eyes welled up with tears as he committed to his role in this little drama. "For someone like me, who isn't cut out to be a mage, this is my only chance at survival. I can't possibly share it." Hadu continued. This has nothing to do with the succession race. Seeing her little brother's teary eyes, Minji was moved. It's okay, you don't have to tell us. It's our baby brother's only hope, after all. Even Zaya and Jinhoo were completely speechless at the performance put on by the two siblings. Minji took a handkerchief to wipe away Hadu's crocodile tears. Meanwhile, he whispered, "Thank you for understanding, sister." Jihan, watching this play out, was completely stunned and quickly interjected to break up the farce. "Let's put this meaningless succession race aside for now. Why don't we all just chat and relax for a bit?" She immediately turned to speak privately with him, wanting to hear more from Hadu. Even the cake on the table was completely ignored. Zia and Jihan split off to talk privately, while Hadu and the other two continued to laugh and chat as if nothing had happened. Time flew by, and that's how the young masters and ladies of the Shin clan finished their incredibly awkward meal together. Suddenly, he glanced around for a moment. I should probably. Just then, an emergency message alert went off on everyone's phone. Everyone stood up in confusion. They could only stare at each other's faces. Minji panicked. "What's going on?" Jinhoo was also stunned. "It's an emergency alert." Zaya held her phone, breaking out in a cold sweat. She couldn't believe what was happening. Right now? At this hour? The eldest young master, Jihan, bit his lip as he read the emergency message. His face twisted into an ugly scowl, staring intently at his phone. The message read, "Emergency alert, breaking news. An Obelic Academy staff member has been identified as a criminal mage with ties to the Black Tower. Lang Smith, the second son of the prestigious Smith family from France, has been taken into custody. The arresting mage was Zhonghua, a 6th-level mage and secretary to Kangin of the Blue Tower." All eyes turned to Jihan, who was sitting calmly at the head of the table. Hadu smiled smugly, thinking, "Gotcha, brother." He recalled Jihan's uncomfortable expression from when he'd hit a nerve, then looked directly at the face, now feigning composure. "Jihan, it was you, wasn't it?" Night had finally fallen. The bright moon shone against the dark sky. Hadu put on his headphones, mulling over the afternoon's message, when a voice suddenly spoke. It seems Hadu was right. He kept his eyes glued to the emergency message. 10:31 p.m. Zhonghua, a 6th-level mage and assistant to Kangin of the Blue Tower, had discovered Lang Smith's suspicious activities in the Obelic Academy training supply room. Lang Smith was allegedly tampering with materials for the survival test, and if Zhonghua hadn't coincidentally dropped by the supply room, who knows what kind of disaster might have occurred during Friday's test. The Korean government, the Korean Mage Association, and the International Mage Association have all declared they will not overlook this infiltration by the Black Tower. Suddenly, Hadu paused. But Kangin, standing beside him, was sharp. "How did you know Smith would tamper with the training supplies?" Hadu answered nonchalantly. "I just made a logical deduction based on the intelligence I had." He recounted the process of his deduction. An image of Smith's cryptic smile flashed through his mind. Considering Instructor Smith had already infiltrated the academy, there was a high probability he would act within its grounds. Each piece of evidence Hadu presented was convincing, especially when he recalled Smith using a mind control spell on him. Looking at this week's schedule, the only day he could act would be like a regular Detective Conan, he declared with absolute certainty. Friday, the day of the survival test. Hadu's deduction was becoming increasingly plausible. If he wanted to cause an incident during the survival test, he'd have to tamper with the training materials. The routine supply check takes place on the afternoon before the test. Therefore, the only time he could interfere without being noticed would be, Hadu stated firmly, tonight, Thursday night. He recounted his entire investigative process, from the moment he identified Smith to setting up the family gathering to expose the true mastermind. "I already have the Blue Tower monitoring the supply room, so I just need to gather the seniors to find out who's behind the Black Tower." As expected, Hadu reached a solid conclusion. "We've captured Professor Smith, confirming a Black Tower spy at Obelic Academy, Professor Lang Smith. He recalled the professor's evasive attitude before he left, and I also suspect a connection between Jihan and the Black Tower. I've executed the plan perfectly, gathering information without revealing myself." Hadu praised himself. It was a flawless execution. He thought pensively, "The only regret is that I couldn't find decisive evidence on the relationship between Jihan and Professor Smith, but I'll eventually find it if I keep digging." Kang Wai sat comfortably in his chair, putting on an air of offering help. "Hadu, I intended to help you this time, but I ended up being the one who received help. The Blue Tower's reputation has skyrocketed thanks to you solving this case." Hadu smiled gently. "I will definitely repay this favor. I won't refuse." He continued to chatter on. Suddenly, Hadu received a call from the head of the tower. "I like your honesty. All right, I'll wrap things up." He took off his earpiece and said politely, "Yes, thank you, sir. Be careful." Suddenly, Hadu was ambushed. Startled, he looked over to see a blurry figure repeatedly screaming his name, "Hadu, Hadu, Hadu." It was that lunatic Sahai Ook, clutching his chest and growling, "Die, die, you failure." He was shocked, Sahai Ook. Hadu was so terrified that sweat poured down his face in streams. This brainless psycho was frantically creating a terrifying stream of magic, relentlessly attacking him. Hadu couldn't react in time, so fast. He then quickly activated his own mana flow. He controlled the magical stream, swirling it in front of him to create a reinforced resonance water shield. Hadu gritted his teeth, worried as he was pushed into a disadvantageous position. Too strong. At this rate, the water shield won't hold. Hadu immediately used his right hand to restrain his hasty left hand and mentally commanded it to adjust the water shield. He panicked and dodged the attack as his hand slipped, causing the magical water stream to attack its own master. Hadu's magic exploded, shaking the heavens and the earth, and he was thrown a great distance. Hadu stared at his glowing red hand. As I thought, I couldn't completely avoid it. Hyuk was also knocked back a few meters, but he was completely unharmed. This is the difference in our abilities. The madman drooled, roaring like a wild beast. Keep struggling, even though you're just a useless piece of trash. Face reality. Hadu sat cautiously by a utility pole. Hyuk, he noticed something unusual about the lunatic. Wait, there's something very strange about him. His eyes were bloodshot, and he stuck out his tongue like a bloodthirsty beast. Hadu analyzed his opponent's every move, and his skin was completely flushed red. This reaction, an illegal stimulant, berserker. He began to break down the drug's weaknesses. The characteristic of this drug is that it forces the mana circle to erupt, causing blood vessels to burst and transforming the user's appearance into that of a berserker, a blood-soaked warrior. But more importantly, its user will fight to the death. Hadu screamed in fear. Are you insane? Hyuk charged at him like a speeding arrow with the speed of a wind prince. Me? Insane? No, there's nothing wrong with me. He struggled to get up to cast a red mana spell, a third-tier magic circle, Fire Strike. In that life-or-death moment, Hadu's arms were grabbed tightly by him, and he cursed fearfully. You lunatic! He drooled profusely, constantly denying Hadu's insult. I told you, I'm normal. Actually, it's more like I've just become normal again. Hyuk laughed loudly, growling. You're about to die. Then he brutally suppressed him with magic. Fire Strike. A massive cloud of dust and smoke rose from the park where they stood. Hyuk gloated over the defeated Hadu. Look at this bastard. He clutched his face in pain as the other man threatened. You're still alive? Hyuk clutched his own face and screamed, You blocked my magic twice! He cursed at Hadu, who was sprawled on the ground. A piece of trash like you? You, how dare you? Suddenly, Hyuk roared like a dog that had broken its leash. Then his mood flipped on a dime, and he let out a sigh of relief. It's fine. Hadu struggled to sit up, thinking to himself, just as I guessed, his mood is erratic. It's definitely the berserker drug. His eyes were fixed on the berserk Hyuk in front of him. But the illogical part is, Hadu recalled the magic that had backfired on him earlier, that mana. No matter how much of the berserker drug he took, he shouldn't be this strong. Could it be? Hadu hesitated to create a stream of magic. Should I test it out? He hunched over like a zombie and taunted. Where are you looking, you little punk? He then launched a sphere of wind. He stood there brazenly watching the dove-shaped mana constructs dive toward him, his mouth never ceasing its insults. After cursing his heart out, Hyuk immediately countered with demonic firepower. How dare you use such trashy magic? Hyu said nonchalantly. I guess I should have been more careful with it. He swiftly dashed down to immobilize his opponent's legs, taking the chance to throw in a few taunts. But he never expected to end up in this situation. Caught by the sneak attack, Hyuk could only hover in the air in a panic. He's right below me. Hyu calmly created an aura airstrike. His opponent was terrified out of his wits by the light from this aura. Hyu's face was taut with concentration. That's right. Hyuk suddenly created a powerful blast of demonic fire, preparing to overwhelm him with fire mana. At this range, he yelled, Fire gun! Hyu could only watch with wide eyes as Hyuk continued to curse him. Die! But he managed to dodge the blast in time. Hyu carefully analyzed the characteristics of the fire gun. It had immense power at close range, but its range was only 7.74 meters. If he kept moving, he could easily avoid it. He looked up again to see his opponent gloating in the air, and he couldn't believe his eyes. Impossible. Landed. Hyu remained on high alert. Do you hate me so much that you had to use an in-chip? Unwilling to admit to his dirty trick, Hyuk could only use a smile to deflect. An in-chip? What nonsense are you talking about? Hyu said calmly. It's understandable that you don't remember. Hearing this, he uttered those shameless words, even though the in-chip on the back of his neck was as clear as day. Why would I need to use it on a loser like you? If you're going to keep spouting nonsense, just shut up and die. Hyu effortlessly weaved through each mana attack as he broke down the situation. The effect of an in-chip is to enhance the user's body, strengthen their mana structure, and alter both the power and range of their magic. Exposed, Hyu could only scream, So what, you bastard? Hyu calmly explained. The funny thing is, I've actually been researching the structural transformation of magic circles and mana, and the conversion of mana structures as well. Thanks to that, I'm extremely sensitive to magical changes caused by mana enhancement and magic circle breakthroughs. As he spoke, he thought to himself, I don't know if this is a stroke of luck or